Chapter 839. Originally, the yellow turban strongman body refining technique was already at the peak of the mountain picking strength, and it would soon enter the next realm of the river turning strength. Under the effect of the Dragon Yuan, the body refining technique directly absorbed almost half of the Dragon Yuan into Yang Chen's body, and began to temper Yang Chen's body with the power of the Dragon Yuan. Under the effect of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, Yang Chen's body shape began to change significantly again. His originally strong and sturdy body began to shrink as if he was deflating air. However, Yang Chen's physical strength was getting stronger and stronger with the change of the body. A casual punch, even if you don't use spiritual power, just the physical strength, the master of the peak Yuanying stage can't bear it with all his strength. Once you add spiritual power, you don't need to say much. The word, river-turning strength, can clearly explain many problems. The figure has gradually recovered to the original height, although it has not been fully restored, but the word, strong, has been completely missed. It's just a little bigger than when he didn't cultivate, and he looks a little more sturdy, but he is no longer a freak in the eyes of others. The pure body's defensive power has been completely improved by a big level. The flying sword of the ordinary foundation stage Jedon stage cultivator can't pierce the skin of Yang Chen at all. Without the golden bell, Yang Chen could also resist ordinary injuries. Being able to cultivate the yellow turban strongman body refining technique to the realm of the river turning strength in the mortal world, Yang Chen is fully confident that after arriving in the spiritual world, he will be able to cultivate the body refining technique to the Deshang realm. This is something that has never happened since ancient times, even in the heavenly court. Yang Chen doesn't even know how powerful it will be after reaching that realm. The most difficult cultivation of the three purities secret art and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique have been upgraded by a realm, and there is not much Dragon Yuan left. Yang Chen seized the time and cultivated the Yin-Yang 5 elements secret art once. With the stimulation of the Dragon Yuan, the growth rate of the Yin-Yang 5 elements secret art was stunning. Yang Chen, who was reborn as an almighty immortal, never lacked the state of mind. However, while improving his spiritual power step by step, he also needed to improve the quality of his spiritual power. While retaining the quality of spiritual power, Yang Chen can also synchronize with geniuses like Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, which is not easy. Cultivating 10 kinds of spiritual power at the same time, the yin and yang and the 5 elements mutually generated the new spiritual power, but it still needed to go through a process of refining the spiritual power of the yin and yang, and the 5 elements mutually restrained each other before it could be considered as the spiritual power that Yang Chen could accept. In terms of the quality of spiritual power, Yang Chen was many times better than people of the same cultivation level. This was also the reason why Yang Chen was only in the early Jedon stage, but the sky measuring ruler marked a value of more than 3,000 degrees, directly comparable to the masters of the Yuanying stage. But now, with the help of the dragon essence, the growth rate of the dragon power had reached an unbelievable level. The dragon essence dissipated quickly, but it was not a short time. It took a month for the 3 purities secret art and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, and 3 months for the Yin-Yang 5 elements secret art. Later, the Dragon Yuan became less and less, and at the same time, the efficiency of using the Dragon Yuan was slowly everywhere. However, even so, Yang Chen was still very satisfied. In 3 months, Yang Chen's cultivation base was directly raised from the middle Jedon stage to the late Jedon stage. Even if Yang Chen was well informed, he was shocked by this crazy speed. Fortunately, the Dragon Yuan produced by the Dragon Clan has only been so little for thousands of years, and it will begin to dissipate and disappear when it encounters a cultivator other than the Dragon Clan. Otherwise, the Dragon Clan would have to stay in the mortal world. How many masters could they quickly create? With the help of the Dragon Yuan, in 4 months of cultivation, Yang Chen's 3 purities secret art and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique were promoted by a big realm, and even his spiritual power cultivation base was promoted by a small realm. These 4 months were already equivalent to the effect of 100 years of cultivation under normal circumstances. The promotion of spiritual power to 10 was secondary. The key was the 3 purities secret art and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique. These 2 most difficult cultivation methods were the most profitable. Coming here was really worth it. Although there were dangers, the benefits were enough to make anyone who knew jealous. Of course, Yang Chen would not make such a mistake and tell others. That was a fool's behavior. In fact, Xiao Tian was the one with the biggest harvest. As a descendant of the Dragon Clan, not only did he sweep away the Dragon Chi here, but he also got the control of the Dragon Palace. The most important thing was that he got the complete inheritance of the Dragon Clan, which was incomparable to any substantial benefit. If it weren't for Yang Chen's cultivation in the Dragon Yuan pool, Xiao Tian could even leave here. As a descendant of the Dragon Clan, the speed of accepting benefits was much faster than Yang Chen. After getting the inheritance of the Dragon Clan, Xiao Tian was very generous and gave all the palaces to Yang Chen, leaving only the Dragon Tower for himself. Under the control of Xiao Tian, the palace group of the Dragon Palace directly became a small model that could be placed in the palm of his hand and was received by Yang Chen into the merit ring. You must know that this was the Dragon Palace. Not to mention anything else, the efficiency of cultivation inside was definitely many times better than outside. At the same time, Yang Chen also had a plan to refine the shuttle from the Dragon Clan. If possible, plus the Golden Bell, it would become a super magic weapon with excellent defense and fast speed at the Grotto Heaven level. Basically, apart from these, there were not many things left in the original Dragon Palace. A formation to collect the 10th water true essence, a formation to protect the Dragon Palace to form a whirlpool in the Sea of No Return, and the powerful slate that carried the formation. For the sake of Xiao Tian's face, Yang Chen would not move these things. Anyway, the good things were in the Dragon Palace. When the time came, he would look for them slowly. There was no need to uproot the Dragon Palace. This trip to explore the Sea of No Return, the harvest was far beyond Yang Chen's imagination. Just inside the Sea of No Return, he stayed for a year and 5 months. Gong Sunling and Ho Yun must have been waiting anxiously on the periphery of the Sea of No Return. Yang Chen was afraid that they would come to look for him regardless of the danger, which would be self-defeating, and he would be in danger for no reason. Fortunately, when they separated, he had already said that the time would not be too short. He hoped that Gong Sunling would not worry too much. After collecting the Dragon Palace, Xiao Tian launched the formation, returned to the teleportation array, and took the crystal ball from the pit. Yang Chen found that there was still half of the monster power crystal left by Lan Ning. It could still be used in the ocean, which was a small surprise. The top priority now was to quickly rendezvous with Gong Sunling and Ho Yun, and then quickly rush back to the Central Plains Daosex. This time, Yang Chen used the power of the Dragon Yuan to desperately improve the realm of the 3 purities secret art. His spiritual awareness was already on the verge of splitting. Both Gao Yu and Yang Chen have already had double cultivation with Yang Chen, and they have also shared a lot of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. Double cultivation will not share much for Yang Chen. Yang Chen needs to consider whether to find Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, his 2 nominal fiancés, to practice the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra together. Chapter 840. It was much easier to get out of the Dragon Palace. At least now Xiao Tian could almost completely control everything here. After returning from the original road to the formation slate, the 5-element hook directly extended several times in Yang Chen's hand and hooked the top 5 buckles. The huge suction could not compete with the power of the 5-element hook, and Yang Chen easily returned to the hole. At this moment, the powerful suction and endless whirlpool of the Sea of No Return seemed to have no effect on Xiao Tian at all, and for Yang Chen, who has just been promoted to the realm of the Yellow Turban Strongman, although there were still some obstacles, it was no longer so involuntary. Soon, Yang Chen took the shuttle away from the core area of the Sea of No Return and began to fly to the periphery. The spiritual awareness that has reached the realm of the human immortal first grade swept unscrupulously in this sea area, even without the use of the demon power crystal of Lanning. No sea beast dared to get a little closer. While enjoying this powerful feeling of transcending the limits of this mortal world, Yang Chen suddenly discovered that in a certain direction outside the Sea of No Return, there were dozens of masters. Sun Chun was a master of the Yuanying stage in Taishaman. He was also the link between Taishaman and Yu Wenyi in the Hidden Dragon Cave. In terms of cultivation base, he and Yu Wenyi of the Hidden Dragon Cave were on the same level, and even the two had competed several times in private. They were evenly matched, and no one could do anything to the other. More than a year ago, Sun Chun suddenly received news from the South China Sea that the Hidden Dragon Cave was uprooted and almost wiped out. What was left were only a few lucky fish and shrimp that were not in the Hidden Dragon Cave at the time, and even the rogue cultivators who didn't know the true identity of Yu Wenyi. This news surprised Sun Chun. Although the sect did not have a lot of people in the South China Sea, there were more than a dozen Yuanying stage masters. Especially the Yuanying stage septuplets, relying on a set of 7-star sword formation, they could almost compete with the masters of the early Dishang stage. Such combat power was actually uprooted? The news was sent by Sun Chun, who secretly left a rogue cultivator to monitor the Hidden Dragon Cave. He couldn't lie, and this was not the betrayal of the Hidden Dragon Cave, but it was eradicated. There was no need to lie at all. Among the murderers who pulled out the Hidden Dragon Cave, Sun Chun heard the name of Yang Chen. At first, he thought that it was a coincidence that they shared the same name, but with the addition of the Wanbao Tower, it was confirmed that it was Yang Chen of Chunyang Palace. How could Yang Chen appear in the South China Sea, and even capture all the masters of the Hidden Dragon Cave? How did he do it? No one knew why Yang Chen would make a move. Although the South China Sea is far away, Taishaman did not plan to control it in the palm of their hands in a short period of time, but they also planned for hundreds of years. Originally, they thought that the slow grinding of Yuan Yi's blunt knife could also make the South China Sea alliance invisible, but they did not expect hundreds of years of hard work to turn into a bubble. It was related to Yang Chen again, and the Taishaman's high-level officials were already a little angry. This guy is like a ghost. He seems to know how to bring trouble to Taishaman all day long. 99% of the high-level officials hope that Yang Chen can die a violent death. However, now Yang Chen can't die. According to the news from the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, the 3 injured Dishang stage elders of their 2 sect have recovered from their injuries under the 5th-grade medicinal pills refined by Yang Chen. Even more than that, after experiencing the torture of this injury, the 3 masters have been greatly tempered in their state of mind, and their cultivation base has risen instead of falling. On the other hand, on the Taishaman side, the injuries of the 3 Dishang stage elders became more and more serious, and even there were signs of being unable to suppress it. The medicinal pills refined by several alchemy masters could stop the injuries of the 3 elders from worsening. As for recovery, it was impossible at all. In this case, how could the Taishaman let Yang Chen die? Yang Chen was now a little guy, although he was a 5th-grade alchemy master, but he only had disagreements with the Taishaman on the matter of Li Qingchen, and even later helped the Taishaman very generously in the interpretation of the secret key. The reason why the Taishaman wanted Yang Chen to die was only because Yang Chen was not in their hands, and his achievements were somewhat outstanding, but it was not a life-and-death enemy. From the perspective of the Taishaman, they were far from knowing the harm that Yang Chen had done to them, and there was no such deep-seated hatred. On one side were their own 3 masters of the Dishang stage, on the other side, The control of a second-rate sect was not successful. Weighing the two sides, it was natural to preserve the combat effectiveness of the masters of the Deshang stage. Now the Taishamen had already suffered huge losses. If they lost these three masters, their strength would go down another level. The meaning of the sect was to let Sun Chun come over to investigate what happened. If possible, it would be best to repair it with Yang Chun. Of course, the best result was to control Yang Chun. To this end, Sun Chun was even allowed to bring 20 Yuanying stage masters. He strived to be stronger than the hidden dragon cave that was destroyed. Along the way, Sun Chun was also careful not to expose his strength. He took a space magic weapon, put the others in the magic weapon, and quickly rushed to the South China Sea. After arriving in the South China Sea, he immediately knew what happened. The people in the hidden dragon cave were greedy for property. Without figuring out the true background of the Wanbao Tower, they rashly made a move which annoyed Yang Chun. Yang Chun brought 11 Yuanying stage masters and a person whose depth could not be seen, who should be in the Deshang stage, and uprooted the hidden dragon cave. This matter was very big in the South China Sea, and Yang Chun did not conceal it at all. Even at the last moment, Yuani's tribulation was not concealed. Sun Chun didn't waste much effort to know what had happened. As soon as he heard the appearance of the master who could not see the depth, Sun Chun knew that it was Gui Shanyu of the Chunyang Palace. He was powerful, not to mention Yuani, who had just been promoted to the Deshang stage. Even if it was a master who had been promoted for 100 years, he was not necessarily the opponent of the old guy. Yang Chun brought Gui Shanyu to the scene, and the hidden dragon cave was not at all destroyed. The other 10 could basically be matched with the masters of the Hall of Eccentrics who joined the Chunyang Palace in recent years. Only Ho Yun was a stranger. What made Sun Chun happy was that when he left Taishanmen, the old tree demon Gui Shanyu had returned to the Chunyang Palace with 10 Yuanying stage masters. Only Yang Chun, Gong Sunling and the mysterious Ho Yun did not know their whereabouts. He said he didn't know, but for others, Sun Chun had a compass in his hand, but he could easily find the direction of Yang Chun. According to the location he was looking for, Yang Chun was still in the South China Sea, and he went to a famous dangerous place in the South China Sea, the Sea of No Return. Although he didn't know what Yang Chun was doing, one thing was certain: Yang Chun was still alive. Chapter 841. The most critical point was that there was no Gui Shanyu around Yang Chun, only Gong Sunling and Ho Yun. Ho Yun was said to be a master of the peak Yuanying stage, but this was not important. What was important was that there were no top masters of Chunyang Palace around Yang Chun now, and the South China Sea was far away from the emperor. Even if they did something, Chunyang Palace would not know who did it. In the past, there were 6 Yuanying stage masters who intercepted Yang Chun and were killed instantly, but everyone suspected that the old tree demon had been following Yang Chun. Otherwise, with Yang Chun's ability, it was impossible to do this. Now Gui Shanyu was determined to be in Chunyang Palace, which was at least a year's journey from the Sea of No Return. Even if he had wings, he could not fly over. Sun Chun, on the other hand, brought 20 Yuanying stage masters. There were 4 peak Yuanying stage masters with the same cultivation base as him. It was more than enough to kill the unknown Ho Yun. As for Gong Sunling, a junior in the middle Jedon stage, as long as any Yuanying stage master came out, they could capture her easily. It just so happened that Gong Sunling was still one of Yang Chun's wives. With her as a hostage, wouldn't Yang Chun be obediently manipulated? This time, Sun Chun felt that he was so lucky that he could encounter such a good thing. Not to mention how many benefits he could get from Yang Chun, a 5th-grade alchemist master. By capturing Yang Chun, the Taishaman alone could be exchanged for a coveted reward. If Sun Chun didn't seize this heaven-sent opportunity, wouldn't he be going against the heavens? So after getting the whereabouts of Yang Chun, Sun Chun immediately began to make arrangements. Of course, Sun Chun was not a reckless person. He must first understand the situation. What was the situation in the Sea of No Return? He soon learned from a group of rogue cultivators. After everything was figured out, Sun Chun took 20 Yuanying stage masters, circled around and went straight to the Sea of No Return. Until the periphery of the Sea of No Return, Yang Chen's position had not changed, which made Sun Chun very happy. At least he didn't have to worry about Yang Chen leaving. To catch Yang Chen, the most troublesome thing was that Yang Chen had a flight-type weapon. Once Yang Chen starts, Sun Chun will not be able to catch up. Fortunately, in the past, Taishiman had a way to deal with Yang Chen. In Sun Chun's hands, he knew a simple way that could be realized here. Last time, they had used the fast boat of the Taishiman, but they had failed on the verge of success. Now that there was no magic weapon that could compete with the shuttle, he naturally had to start from another direction. Of course, the simplest way is to make Yang Chen unable to use the shuttle. At this moment, Sun Chun has such a way. A spirit sealing formation. Once you enter the formation, no matter who it is, the spiritual power of the body will be firmly sealed, unless it is a master of the Deshang stage. There may be a way to get rid of it. Obviously, Yang Chen did not have such a cultivation. This formation was very powerful, but the shortcomings were equally obvious. Once the formation was launched, the enemy's spiritual power entering the formation would be sealed, but in the same way, the master of the formation would not be able to operate his spiritual power. But Sun Chun didn't care about this. As long as he entered the formation, plus his 21 Yuanying stage masters, without spiritual power, couldn't he catch a middle Jedon stage master who also had no spiritual power? Are you kidding me? The body of a Yuanying stage master, who has been baptized by thunder tribulation, was by no means what those little guys in the Jedon stage could imagine. The only drawback was that the activation of this formation required a lot of masters, and the time to arrange it was not short. The enemy would not be stupid enough to rush into the formation. Once the clues were seen, they would be bound to return without success. But as long as the arrangement was completed, with a few Yuanying stage masters fully mobilizing their spiritual power, it would be difficult for a master of the Deshang stage to escape. But with the compass that grasped the whereabouts of Yang Chen, things were much simpler. This method could be used before, but at that time, everyone did not think that 6 Yuanying stage masters could not catch Yang Chen. Now Sun Chun had such an opportunity purely by chance. When arranging the formation, Sun Chun was even surprised to find that Yang Chen seemed to be in the core part of the Sea of No Return. How did Yang Chen get in and how was he safe and sound after entering? These were things that Sun Chun wanted to know even in his dreams. With this reason, Sun Chun's idea of capturing Yang Chen alive became more firm. There were countless good things on the edge of the Sea of No Return and countless powerful sea beasts. What was in the middle of the core was simply exciting. All this, as long as he caught Yang Chen, he could thoroughly know. While Sun Chun was constantly exploring the location of Yang Chen's formation, Yang Chen was cultivating in the Dragon Yuan and couldn't care about anything else. When Yang Chen came out of the Dragon Palace, he immediately noticed the tremor of the spiritual awareness mark in his body. The spiritual awareness mark was planted by Li Liheng, the young master of the Taishiman sect. Yang Chen has no doubt about it. In recent years, Li Liheng would be in a coma for no reason almost every once in a while, which was exactly the same time when Yang Chen threw the spiritual awareness mark into the blood river. He didn't expect to be able to retaliate against another enemy by accident. Yang Chen was of course happy, but he kept throwing the spiritual awareness mark into the blood river every once in a while. With Yang Chen's current human immortal first-grade spiritual awareness, he immediately discovered the movement on Sun Chun's side. Even the formation arranged by Sun Chun, Yang Chen saw it clearly and understood its role clearly. The other party used such a method to limit Yang Chen's escape. For a while, Yang Chen didn't know whether to laugh or feel sad for Sun Chun and his party. It was a very strange decision to seal the spiritual power and try to use the Yuanying stage body that had been baptized by thunder tribulation to defeat him. Not to mention that with the help of the dragon Yuan, Yang Chen broke through the fourth layer of the three purities' secret art. With the spiritual awareness of the human immortal first grade, it was hard to say whether this formation could trap Yang Chen. Yang Chen's cultivation of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique had reached the point of turning the river. If these people wanted to use physical strength to fight against it, it was simply seeking death. In the face of such a good thing, Yang Chen, of course, did not hesitate to follow the bridge section designed by Sun Chun and plunged into the formation that had been arranged for a long time, waiting for Yang Chen to throw himself into the trap. In order to judge Yang Chen's route, 5 of the 20 Yuanying stage masters had temporarily lost their combat effectiveness. The remaining 15 were all trying their best to maintain the operation of the formation. Sun Chun himself was standing in the center of the formation, quietly waiting for the arrival of Yang Chen. He believed that Yang Chen had already discovered the abnormality, but now that he had entered the formation, everything was too late. At this moment, Yang Chen was a beast trapped by the formation, waiting to be slaughtered. No matter which direction Yang Chen went, he, who had lost his spiritual power, would eventually be guided to the position where Sun Chun was located by the formation. Sun Chun, who was waiting at ease, even saw that Yang Chen was captured by himself, understood the secret of the Sea of No Return, understood the secret of Yang Chen's alchemy, the large reward issued by the sect, and joined the high-level situation of the sect. Chapter 842. Yang Chen, Grandmaster Yang, with your current realm of alchemy, there is no benefit in Chunyang Palace. Sun Chun faced Yang Chen and still intended to persuade him patiently. After all, an alchemist who is willing to join is far better than being forced to join. Join my Taishanmen, you can get everything you want. When he first saw Yang Chen, Sun Chun was also shocked. If he didn't know that the spiritual awareness imprint would never be wrong, he might think that this was someone else. In his impression, the image of Yang Chen was a tall and powerful man. How did he suddenly become a normal person at this moment? However, this is not the focus of Sun Chun's concern. Many body refining techniques have similar changes, which is not surprising. As long as Sun Chun can be sure that the person in front of him is the 5th grade alchemist master Yang Chen. Presumably, Yang Chen has found the abnormality, but Sun Chun doesn't care. What if he finds it? In this formation, unless it is someone who has a much higher realm than Sun Chun, he can't escape the shackles of the formation at all. Yang Chen is a small Jedon stage cultivator, it is not a problem for him to catch him. Just for this. Yang Chen looked around. 100 feet away, there were at least a dozen masters. Mobilizing such a large force, could it be that they wanted to kill him at all costs? Yang Chen needs to figure out this problem. After all, hiding in the dark and facing Taishanmen directly are two completely different concepts and require different method. Of course, we Taishanmen are very sincere. Sun Chun saw that Yang Chen's expression was not very surprising, and his heart moved. Perhaps Yang Chen's mind has begun to waver, which is definitely a good phenomenon. As long as Yang Chen is willing to consider it, there will be a chance. What kind of sincerity? At this moment, Yang Chen was not in a hurry to start. With such a master who understands the internal affairs of Taishanmen, he can ask something. As long as we Taishanmen can do it, you can ask. Sun Chun's tone was unprecedented. This was not him being arrogant, nor was he overstepping his authority to make a decision for the sect master, but a 5th grade alchemist, the only 5th grade alchemist in the world, was worth paying such a price. If I don't agree, you'll kill me? Yang Chen pointed at the surrounding and asked calmly again. This formation can only trap people. It won't kill them. Sun Chun shook his head slightly and said sincerely, I just want to talk to you, Master Yang. I have no other intention. Of course, if Yang Chen did not agree, then this formation would become a formation to capture Yang Chen. However, Yang Chen now believed that these people did not intend to kill him. They only wanted to rope him in or capture him. You don't intend to kill me? Yang Chen suddenly laughed. If you let me join the Taishanmen, would you let bygones be bygones? You don't intend to pursue the death of Li Qingchen? Li Qingchen is to blame, it's not your fault. Sun Chun was getting happier and happier. As long as Yang Chen was willing to ask these things, he would not worry that he would not be tempted. After all, Sun Chun also knew that the first sect that Yang Chen came to worship was the Taishanmen, but he was thrown out without eyes. There was a heart for Taishanmen. Not to mention Li Qingchen, even Li Qingchen's master, in order to win over Yang Chen at this moment, he would not hesitate to be betrayed. What about the 6 Yuanying stage masters? The smile on Yang Chen's face was very strange, and he looked at Sun Chun with a smile. Last time, the Taishanmen used 6 Yuanying stage masters to intercept and kill Yang Chen, but they were killed by Yang Chen. Could the Taishanmen let go of this kind of thing? Sun Chun really knew about the 6 Yuanying stage masters, but at this moment, he did not hesitate at all. He nodded directly and said, at that time, everyone's position was different. It was inevitable that there would be deaths and injuries. Even other people in the sect could figure it out. You don't have to worry about it. After a pause, Sun Chun seemed to want to reassure Yang Chen completely and added, moreover, everyone knows that with your strength alone, you definitely can't kill the 6 brothers. It's not your fault. Although you have the name of killing people, the Taishanmen will never pursue this matter again. You can rest assured. In order to win over Yang Chen, even the lives of the 6 Yuanying stage masters who had died in Yang Chen's hands were no longer pursued. It must be said that the Taishanmen had made a lot of capital this time. If it was a small sect, 6 Yuanying stage masters would almost be a disaster. The Greatest Heaven sect was a big family and it was really extraordinary. Is it possible that Mr.'s trip is specifically for Yang Chen? Yang Chen also nodded when he listened, but the topic immediately turned to the purpose of Sun Chun's trip. Originally, it was just because of the destruction of the hidden dragon cave. I happened to learn that the master was here, and it was fate. Sun Chun was also a bachelor. In order to let Yang Chen completely rest assured, he even said the purpose of this trip. The destruction of the hidden dragon cave this time was caused by greed. It's your own fault. Master Yang, it's good for you to destroy it. The hidden dragon cave is the arrangement of the Taishanmen? Yang Chen's eyes tightened as he stared at Sun Chun and asked. The other party even told him this kind of thing. He must have prepared for the worst, either to recruit him or to capture him alive. If there is no way, it is to kill him. This kind of secret must never be leaked to outsiders. Exactly, this time I came to the South China Sea to rebuild a rogue cultivator alliance. Since Sun Chun has made up his mind, he is not afraid to tell Yang Chen. The Taishanmen are determined to win the South China Sea. I think Master Yang can also see the spirit of our Taishanmen. Not only in the South China Sea, but also in several other places, there are forces of our Taishanmen. Looking at Yang Chen's slightly surprised eyes, Sun Chun became more and more excited. Others think that our Taishanmen mountain gate was destroyed and suffered heavy losses, but the loss is only some reserved disciples. As long as time passes, in less than 100 years, our Taishanmen will definitely be several times stronger than now. The world is big, and it is all in the center of our Taishanmen. Master Yang, honest people don't beat around the bush. If you join our Taishanmen, you can take whatever you want in the world. Sun Chun felt that there was enough to say. If Yang Chen was smart enough, he should have made a decision. At the moment, he no longer talked nonsense, and directly asked Yang Chen to give a reply. I don't know what Master Yang thinks. Mr. is here to rebuild a rogue cultivator alliance to replace the hidden dragon cave, is that right? Yang Chen did not give a direct answer, but asked a seemingly irrelevant question. Exactly. Sun Chun did not hide it. If Yang Chun didn't want to die now, he could only accept Sun Chun's manipulation. That's good. Yang Chen's face suddenly showed a smile. For at least a few decades, the Taishaman probably won't care about you, right? Chapter 843. Just when Sun Chun was still wondering what Yang Chen meant, Yang Chen's figure had already begun to act. His goal was not Sun Chun, who was facing him, but the 15 masters around him who were already within 20 feet of him. Under the speed at which all the people were stunned, Yang Chen directly faced the one who was the farthest away from him. Without saying anything, he just punched out. When the formation was set up, these masters knew what would happen, so they had already called out the flying sword and held it in their hands. As soon as the formation was activated, the spiritual power was sealed, and the Qiankuan bag could not be used, let alone the life source flying sword, which was sealed in the body and could not be taken out. As for using the sword to hurt people, it was even more impossible. There was no other way except to hold it in the hand and use it. Seeing Yang Chen's punch coming, the other party was a Yuanying stage master with rich combat experience. He was not afraid at all and waved his sword to block. Fortunately, he still didn't want to hurt Yang Chen, only using the ridge of the sword. He wanted to stop Yang Chen's punch and then easily control it. Including Sun Chun, no one felt that there would be any accident. Originally, the formation was to deal with 3 people, but now there was only Yang Chen, not to mention 21 against 1. Even if it was 1 against 1, it would be easy. How could anyone guard against it? Dang, there was a loud noise. The Yuanying stage master holding the sword shook violently in his hand, and he could no longer hold the hilt of the sword. The flying sword flew out of his hand, and he didn't know where it fell. But Yang Chen's fist momentum did not stop at all. He still punched over and hit the opponent's chest solidly. The Yuanying stage master couldn't avoid it at all. He was hit by a punch, and before he could say anything, he fainted and became unconscious. Yang Chen did not stop at all. He turned around and rushed to another person. At this time, no one dared to underestimate the enemy. All of them were protecting themselves as if they were facing a formidable enemy. A few who were close even gathered together and formed 1 or 2 teams, intending to fight against Yang Chen separately. Who would have thought that Yang Chen, who had his spiritual power sealed, could still be so fierce? Needless to say, it must be a problem with the change in body shape. A certain body refining technique had reached a certain realm, and this kind of situation appeared. Unfortunately, he broke through at this moment. But in any case, if 15 against 1 still couldn't take down Yang Chen, all the Yuanying stage masters present should kill themselves. Sun Chun's face was black, and he waved at several fellow apprentices around him, and everyone swarmed up. This Yang Chen doesn't know what's good for him. He still wants to get lucky in this situation. He just asked Sun Chun the purpose of coming here. Was it to catch them all in one fell swoop? The enraged Taishaman rushed forward almost crazily. A little Jiedon middle stage dared to be so presumptuous. Could it be that by relying on some unknown body-refining technique, he dared to be so rampant? In an instant, at least 8 people rushed to Yang Chen's side, and at least 5 swords slashed on Yang Chen's body. Fortunately, these people did not forget to capture Yang Chen alive in their rage. They cut the limbs, but there were no fatal parts. However, the next scene in front of them was simply frightening. 5 flying swords slashed on Yang Chen's body, but they only scratched Yang Chen's clothes. When the blades reached his body, they felt a shock force, and the 5 flying swords that were slashed down bounced up violently, and the part that the blades cut did not even leave a white mark. What was this? Without spiritual power, it was impossible to use magic weapons, but what kind of cultivation method could make the flying sword bounce back? It must be known that this was not an ordinary sword, but everyone's life source flying sword. It was by no means something like the golden bell shield and iron cloth shirt could block. In a flash, Yang Chen did not dodge a few swords, but his fists blasted out mercilessly. A few punches in a row, all fell on the opponent's chest, and the strength used was just right. The 7 Yuanying stage masters around him couldn't even take a punch, and all of them fainted. In this spiritual power sealing formation, Yang Chen's yellow turban strongman body refining technique was simply like a fish in the water. It must be known that when this immortal secret art was cultivated to the 5th layer, it could compete with those great principal golden immortals. Although Yang Chen was now only in the 3rd layer, it was absolutely more than enough to crush a few Yuanying stage masters in the mortal world. What's more, these enemies also sealed their spiritual power. Yang Chen had seen fools, but he had never seen such a fool. Without asking, he also knew that this was because he was afraid that his shuttle would be too fast to catch up, but this method of self-abolishing martial arts was still too strange, so that Yang Chen couldn't help but want to wake up from his sleep. Taking the initiative to send 21 Yuanying stage masters for him to kill, this was really a big move by Taishaman. Thinking about it, Sun Chun shouldn't have looked for his own trouble, but he happened to think that he was easy to bully. At this moment, everyone had gathered. Within the scope of this formation, no one was the opponent of Yang Chen in terms of speed. In terms of strength, it was a world of difference. In less than a moment, the remaining Yuanying stage masters, except for Sun Chun, were all knocked down by Yang Chen with his fists, and none of them escaped. You? Sun Chun originally wanted to help his fellow apprentices fight, but he didn't expect things to happen so fast. When he rushed to Yang Chen's side, there was no one standing around. At this moment, Sun Chun's eyes seemed to spurt out flames. Yang Chen, this guy, actually talked so much with him, and now he was despicably knocking down all his fellow apprentices. This was simply slapping himself in the face. How could Sun Chun bear it? The flying sword in his hand was unfolded, and he slashed towards Yang Chen's throat. At this moment, Sun Chun's mind had no plan to capture Yang Chen alive. If he didn't kill Yang Chen, once the matter of the hidden dragon cave was spread, Taishaman would definitely become the target of public criticism. In any case, Sun Chun would kill Yang Chen on the spot. Before he started, Sun Chun had already crushed the jade amulet controlled by the formation. As long as it was within 10 breaths, the spiritual power sealing formation would fail. Those fellow apprentices were knocked down by Yang Chen before they could even wait for their spiritual power to recover. However, this also gave Sun Chun a lot of time. With his peak Yuanying stage strength, it was absolutely easy to deal with Yang Chen in the middle Jedon stage. Suddenly, Sun Chun felt that his body was light, and the feeling of his spiritual power being bound disappeared without a trace. Sun Chun's face suddenly became happy, and the flying sword in his hand was like a dragon entering the sea, flying up, and in a flash, it cut between Yang Chen's neck. Before Sun Chun saw the result, his ankle suddenly tightened, as if he was lifted by something. Then, with a few bangs, Sun Chun's figure flew up and down, and he was hit several times on the platform base of the original formation. His whole body was hit by this fall, and his whole body was in severe pain. He didn't know how many bones were broken. Chapter 844. In the eyes of outsiders, at this moment, Sun Chun, who was at the peak Yuanying stage, was grabbed by Yang Chen's ankle, and then swung in the air and smashed around. He had the strength of the peak Yuanying stage, but Sun Chun could not break away from Yang Chen's big hand that grabbed his ankle. The strength of Yang Chen's grip almost broke his ankle. Under the severe pain, coupled with the sudden involuntary fall, how could he care about other things? The high and mighty peak Yuanying stage had never tasted such a frustrating taste. Just a few back and forth smashes made Sun Chun's body protection spiritual power no longer work. His bones were almost broken in half, and the spiritual power of his whole body was also scattered by Yang Chen's high-speed technique. In a moment, Sun Chun, who thought that the victory was in hand, changed from a high-spirited peak Yuanying stage ancestor to a dying, seriously injured and dying person. Lying helplessly on the ground, Sun Chun couldn't even move a finger at will. In his life, he had fought countless battles, but he had never been so miserable, which made him feel that it was better to die. But Yang Chen left his life, not only his life, but even the lives of 20 other Yuanying stage masters. Yang Chen did not collect them, all of them were still alive. This was not that Yang Chen suddenly became soft-hearted, but after knowing the purpose of Sun Chun's coming to the South China Sea, he deliberately showed mercy. Now that Sun Chun and the others were killed, the Taishamen must know that they would not only replan the South China Sea, but also strengthen their killing intent against Yang Chen. But keeping their lives was different. They originally came here to establish a rogue cultivator alliance, and it was estimated that they would not be able to rush back to the General Alliance for decades or even hundreds of years. Then during this period of time, the Taishamen in the South China Sea is equivalent to having no power at all. As long as the South China Sea Alliance develops faster, the Taishamen will have no chance to intervene in the future. Secondly, if these people are not killed, the Taishamen will not launch their final means against himself and Chunyang Palace in the short term. Although the Chunyang Palace had grown a lot, it still couldn't compete with the Taishamen. He still needed Yang Chen to think of ways to weaken the Taishamen for a long time. In addition, these 21 Yuanying stage masters were definitely the best tonic for Gong Suanling's Mountain River geographical map. With more than 20 experts from the Orthodox Taoism, it would definitely shorten the time for Gong Sunling to refine the geographical map of mountains and rivers. Weakening the enemy's strength on one hand and strengthening his own strength on the other was Yang Chen's favorite thing to do. Moreover, Gong Sunling was his wife. It was only right and proper for a husband to help his wife. After putting away the 21 Yuanying, Yang Chen did not let go of the materials used for setting up the formation. He plundered them all into his Qiankuan bag, and then began to look for the whereabouts of Ho Yun and Gong Sunling. In the area of the Sea of No Return, Yang Chen drove the shuttle for less than half a month and found Ho Yun and Gong Sunling on the periphery. It was said to be on the periphery, but in fact the two had already gone a lot deeper. During the time when Yang Chen entered the Sea of No Return, Ho Yun and Gong Sunling were looking for those powerful sea beasts on the periphery. Meeting Ho Yun, the sea beasts in this sea area were pitiful and unlucky. This guy who had been depressed in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave for tens of thousands of years was simply a battle maniac. When he encountered a sea beast, regardless of anything, he would rush up and fight. The general sea beasts really couldn't be seen in Ho Yun's eyes. He only chose those with strong combat power. However, even so, those sea beasts who were born to cultivate had no way to deal with Ho Yun, who had cultivated the transformation secret art and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, and also the water attribute Ho Yun. Not to mention the Deshang stage cultivation base plus natural divine power plus the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, not to mention the sea beasts in the mortal world. Even if it was the blue shadow that had already ascended, it was estimated that he could fight. Countless powerful sea beasts became the target of Ho Yun's practice one by one. When they were almost ravaged by Ho Yun, they were thrown into the Mountain River geographical map of Gong Sunling and became the slaves of the Mountain River geographical map, helping Gong Sunling to refine it. In this circle, the sea beasts that could be called powerful in the periphery were all defeated. Except for some unruly and powerful guys who were killed by Ho Yun, all the others were collected by Gong Sunling. On the periphery of the entire Sea of No Return, there were no sea beasts above the Yuanying stage. Of course, Ho Yun was not satisfied, so, under Ho Yun's careful protection, the two began to move forward into the interior of the Sea of No Return for a short time. The sea beasts here were more powerful, and there were even Deshang stage masters. Here, Ho Yun could be considered to be truly satisfied. Fighting with the Deshang stage sea beasts in the sea, even if it was as powerful as Ho Yun, he could not guarantee that he could win every time. Every battle was very hard, but it also made Ho Yun really go all out, from the body to the heart, it was very comfortable. In the battle of the Deshang stage, Gong's Sunling became superfluous. However, this did not mean that Gong's Sunling was not safe. After collecting many Yuanying stage masters of the sea race, the Mountain River geographical map has inspired a new use. It may not be used to attack the enemy, but it was more than enough to protect Gong's Sunling. With less worries, Ho Yun was more and more presumptuous, provoking strong enemies everywhere. In just over a year, he was fighting almost every day, and the strength of his battle intent was unprecedented. And Ho Yun's cultivation state of mind, in this more than a year of non-stop fighting, was improving more and more, gradually reaching the edge of the late stage, only one step away from the peak Deshang stage. Yang Chen's shuttle appeared behind Gong's Sunling, and Gong's Sunling noticed the arrival of Yang Chen almost instantly. At the moment when Yang Chen put away the shuttle, Gong's Sunling had already rushed into Yang Chen's arms. It seemed that the two had a silent tacit understanding. There was no need to say anything at all, they had a tacit understanding. Ho Yun was still fighting. His opponent was a huge tuna in the sea. It was as fast as electricity. Even the turbulent suction here in the sea of no return seemed to have no effect on it. The long pointed beak was like a sharp spear, and it was evenly matched with Ho Yun. It was not known how long they had been fighting. Ho Yun's face even had sweat beads. The terror of the opponent could be seen. However, Ho Yun was not a good person. The golden stick in his hands was powerful. The opponent was also in the Deshang stage, but he only dared to rely on speed to avoid. He did not dare to fight with Ho Yun face to face. Of course, the appearance of Yang Chen could not be hidden from Ho Yun. In the gap of the battle, Ho Yun had already seen Yang Chen, and also saw the changes in Yang Chen's body, and his eyes suddenly lit up. However, Ho Yun suddenly discovered that he only saw Yang Chen with his eyes, and his spiritual awareness could not detect the whereabouts of Yang Chen at all, which was a shocking thing. Chapter 845. Ho Yun himself was a powerhouse of the Deshang stage, and after this period of fighting, his realm had been improved and he had reached the peak of the late Deshang stage. Compared with Luo Yuan in the past, he was even better. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for Yang Chen to escape the exploration of his spiritual awareness. Unless he relied on a powerful magic weapon to hide his spiritual awareness, this magic weapon Yang Chen had had before, but obviously Yang Chen did not use it now. Under normal circumstances, it seemed that there was only one possibility left that Ho Yun's spiritual awareness could be shielded. That was, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness cultivation base was far higher than Ho Yun, at least a realm higher than Ho Yun. The foundation stage could not detect the Zhedan stage with spiritual awareness. The Zhedan stage could not detect the Yuanying stage with spiritual awareness, and the Yuanying stage could not detect the Deshang stage with spiritual awareness. These were all because of the difference in realms. However, Ho Yun himself was already in the Deshang stage, and even he couldn't detect the realm with his spiritual awareness. What realm was that? Ho Yun couldn't help but be shocked. This thing was really unbelievable. With a feint, Ho Yun instantly broke out of the battle circle. Whether it was the body refining technique or the realm of spiritual awareness, Yang Chen was more interesting to Ho Yun than the sea beast of the Deshang stage. The sea beast also knew that Ho Yun was powerful. Seeing that Ho Yun took the initiative to break out of the battle circle, it did not pursue him. It just quietly dived into the sea and disappeared. This is the power of turning the river? Ho Yun came to Yang Chen's side and looked up and down at Yang Chen's body with an incredible look on his face. Ho Yun himself also received the teaching of Yang Chen's yellow turban strongman body refining technique. Of course, he understood that the changes in Yang Chen's body could only be achieved after cultivating to the third gravity river. However, the more he understood the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, the more he understood the difficulty of cultivating this body refining technique. According to Ho Yun's own estimation, if he wanted to cultivate to the third layer, It would be at least hundreds of years after ascending to the spiritual world. Yang Chen was now only more than 100 years old. Even without the thunder tribulation, it was easier for the body refining to succeed, but this cultivation speed was really a bit monstrous. Even Ho Yun, a real monstrous talent, was a little moved. "Fight me." Looking at Yang Chen's body, Ho Yun's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help shooting out waves of battle intent. It was the mood of Ho Yun now. Yang Chen's river-turning strength even made Ho Yun forget that he was in the Deshang stage and Yang Chen was only in the Jedan stage. He just wanted to have a good fight. "You are not allowed to use your spiritual power." Gong Sunling, on the other hand, had absolute confidence in her husband. Especially when Yang Chen had defeated Ho Yun in terms of experience on the shuttle. Now, looking at the changes in Yang Chen's body shape, she naturally knew that her husband's cultivation was successful. How could she let her husband's reputation fall? Restricting spiritual power and only using physical strength would naturally make Ho Yun more convinced. Gong Sunling knew the origin of Ho Yun and knew that from the bottom of his heart, Ho Yun was not willing to join Chunyang Palace. But now Yang Chen had the opportunity to subdue Ho Yun and suppress his strength. Coupled with the gift of cultivation method, Ho Yun, who was full of fighting intent, may become a big help to Yang Chen. With the guidance of Yang Chen, Gong Sunling's mind was also flexible, and she thought of this in an instant. Yang Chen also had a tacit understanding, smiled at Gong Sunling, and then looked at Ho Yun with a smile. That's natural. Although Ho Yun was belligerent, he had not yet reached the point of suppressing people with his realm, especially when facing Yang Chen. He promised, and then immediately put on a fighting posture. "Here." Yang Chen shook his head directly. "Uncle Master, let's leave this sea and find a small island." After all, there was no place to set foot in the sea of no return. Without using spiritual power, it was impossible to fight at all. Ho Yun also realized this and immediately followed the advice. The golden stick was carried on his shoulder, and he was about to leave. How could Yang Chen let Ho Yun work hard? He immediately called out the shuttle, put the 3 people in it, and quickly left the sea. The infamous sea of no return has once again restored its calm on the surface. Except for the lack of a lot of fierce sea beasts on the periphery, there seems to be no other change. Maybe in a few years there will be equally fierce sea beasts coming from other places. Maybe there will be some powerful monsters coming out of the sea of no return to occupy the territory. In any case, the sea of no return was still the sea of no return, and it was still the fierce place that made the rogue cultivators on the sea change their faces. In the shuttle, Yang Chen didn't say a word. He first threw out Sun Chun and other 21 Yuanying stage masters and briefly introduced them. Then he let Gong Sunling receive these Dao sect masters into the Mountain River geographical map. These days, Gong Sunling has collected no less than 100 Yuanying stage sea beasts, and even 2 Deshang stage sea beasts, all of which were captured by Ho Yun. Coupled with these Dao sect Yuanying stage masters, the Mountain River geographical map that originally needed to be tempered for hundreds of years could be tempered in at most another 10 years. At that time, Gong Sunling's combat effectiveness would definitely rise in a straight line. Even Shi Shanshan, who has cultivated more than Gong Sunling and Yang Chen for 100 years, may not be the opponent of Gong Sunling. These days, Ho Yun has been running around on the sea with Gong Sunling. There was no place to stand. He relied on his cultivation base to circle around the periphery of the sea of no return. When they got on the shuttle, both of them had a feeling of stepping on the ground. Yang Chen certainly understood that the 2 of them were tired, especially Ho Yun, who not only had to fight, but also had to take care of Gong Sunling and prevent Gong Sunling from getting injured, which was even harder. Not to mention anything else, just taking care of his wife, Yang Chen had to express his gratitude. At the moment, Yang Chen didn't say anything. 2 large cups of jade dragon wine made by the 4 Seas mysterious coral liquid, one for Ho Yun and one for Gong Sunling. They have been fighting on the sea for more than a year, and they were physically and mentally exhausted. They just took the opportunity to sleep and recuperate. Gong Sunling drank the Four Seas' mysterious coral liquid. Of course, she understood her husband's painstaking efforts. Ho Yun believed in Yang Chen very much, drank it, and then fell directly to the ground, snoring loudly, as if he would not wake up even if the sky fell. Ho Yun was simply sent to one side to sleep, but Yang Chen carefully held Gong Sunling and sat on the side, holding Gong Sunling with one hand, taking out the jade gourd with the other hand, pouring himself a cup of jade dragon wine, and sipping it slowly. He just held Gong Sunling and let her sleep in his arms. The shuttle was on the bottom of the sea, flying fast, but it was directly on the way back to the Dao sections. The arrangement of the Taishanmen in the South China Sea was destroyed, and the newly arrived Sun Chun and others were also captured. For at least a few decades, there would be no more black hands of the Taishanmen in the South China Sea. Now the most important thing for Yang Chen was to hurry back to the Dao sects and cultivate the highest mystery Yin Yang Heart Sutra with Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan to stabilize the spiritual awareness that suddenly increased because of the Dragon Yuan. Chapter 846. Gong Sunling has taken the Four Seas' mysterious coral liquid many times. After waking up, the changes in her body were not very obvious. But Ho Yun was different. He took the Four Seas' mysterious coral liquid for the first time, which made him feel embarrassed. Although Ho Yun was already a master of the Deshang stage, and at least experienced the baptism of the Thunder Tribulation and the Yin Fire Tribulation, the impurities in his body were still staggering. After a long sleep, Ho Yun woke up and immediately knew what happened to his body. In this regard, on the one hand, Ho Yun was very grateful to Yang Chen, but on the other hand, he was slightly annoyed. Ho Yun's embarrassment fell in the eyes of Gong Sunling. It seemed that this was a reason for Ho Yun to be very unhappy. For Gong Sunling, Ho Yun had a special feeling of care. After taking care of Gong Sunling for such a long time, Ho Yun was very reluctant to let Gong Sunling see a little embarrassment. However, the benefits were also huge. After experiencing the Thunder Tribulation and the Yin Fire Tribulation in the Immortal's cave, his body did not become completely free of impurities. In this regard, the monster race had an innate disadvantage compared to humans. This large cup of Four Seas' mysterious coral liquid directly made Ho Yun's body pure a lot, which had immeasurable benefits for his future cultivation. Not to mention anything else, the yellow turban strongman body refining technique alone could save at least decades of hard work. Hurry up, let's find a place to compete. Ho Yun was very curious about Yang Chen's current realm, and couldn't wait to compete with Yang Chen, who had the yellow turban strongman body refining arcane power in the river-turning realm. Yang Chen actually wanted to know the gap in strength between himself and Ho Yun. Ho Yun was so eager, Yang Chen was not polite. He directly found an island along the way, put away the shuttle, and the three flew to the island and began to prepare for the battle. The island was not big, it was only a few feet, and the sea surface was not high, but it was more than enough for Yang Chen and Ho Yun to stand on. Not far away, Gong Sunling was flying in the air, the only audience at the scene. The two stood face to face. Although he didn't use spiritual power, Ho Yun still held his huge stick. On Yang Chen's side, there were no suitable heavy weapons, so he simply fought empty-handed. Ho Yun was not polite at all. He was not embarrassed at all because Yang Chen was unarmed. Seeing that Yang Chen was ready, he shouted and raised the stick in his hand high, smashing it down on Yang Chen. His stance was clearly that of an irreconcilable enemy with Yang Chen, and he had no concept of holding back at all. Gong Sunling, who was watching from the side, almost screamed. Fortunately, she believed in her Longjuan's ability, and if he couldn't take it, he could use his wakan, so she didn't lose her composure. The sound of the wind stirred up by the stick was like a soul-chasing beast, sending chills down one's spine. Yang Chen, who was standing in the same place, did not feel the slightest fear. He just stared at the shadow of the stick that was smashed down. Then he stretched out his hand and grabbed the high-speed stick in his hand. The big stick that was smashed down with all his strength was caught by Yang Chen in his hand. Ho Yun was not surprised at all, and some of it was even intentional. If the two wanted to compete in strength, naturally there must be a medium, and this big stick was the medium between the two. However, Yang Chen caught it so easily. Yang Chen held the big stick that carried a huge force in his hand, and his body didn't shake much. This made Ho Yun a little surprised and even looked forward to it. No one knew the power of the stick better than Ho Yun himself. If it was replaced by an ordinary cultivator, even if they used spiritual power, they might not be able to take it so easily. Over the past year, Ho Yun had fought with many powerful sea beasts, but there was no one who could take his stick with physical strength alone. Even so, Yang Chen's palm still hurt faintly. Ho Yun's stick was definitely more than a force of 100,000 jin. It was at least 40,000 to 50,000 jin. But for Yang Chen at the moment it was not too difficult. After all, it was beyond two realms. It was not simply a matter of strength. Grabbing the head of Ho Yun's stick, Yang Chen immediately backhanded. Ho Yun's body, which was standing in place, was involuntarily driven by Yang Chen at this moment. Yang Chen's arm also swung up, but he swung Ho Yun together with the stick. He turned two big circles in the air, and then slammed into the ground. Boom! Ho Yun's body had no resistance at all. He was driven by the big stick, turned two circles in the air, and slammed heavily into the ground of the island. Ho Yun, who was covered in dust, jumped out of the human-shaped pit. He didn't even want the stick and jumped directly into the air. Yang Chen did not use his full strength. Ho Yun knew this very well. The same thing was smashed from the air. Yang Chen could easily grab the stick and then unload the force, but Ho Yun couldn't. This was not just a matter of skill. Absolute strength was also a decisive factor. However, just like this, it was completely impossible to see what level Yang Chen's current strength had reached. Ho Yun scratched his ears and cheeks anxiously. It was clear that Yang Chen was in front of him, but he couldn't explore it. This was simply a torturous thing. Yang Chen also wanted to know what level his strength had reached. Although the body refining technique had reached the realm of river-turning strength, it was only a feeling during cultivation. For his true strength, Yang Chen was not clear. At that time, the dragon yuan was precious. Yang Chen had no time to verify his strength. Now it was also an opportunity for Yang Chen to understand himself. He waved Ho Yun's big stick and began to smash around. The goal was no longer directed at Ho Yun, but the island with a radius of a few feet. Boom! The loud sound kept ringing, and after a few consecutive hits, the island had begun to shake violently, and then began to crack from the center. The sudden change made Yang Chen startled. He hurriedly jumped up in the air and looked down at the ordinary island. His heart suddenly moved, and then his figure flashed and went directly into the sea. Ho Yun and Gong Sunling didn't know what Yang Chen was going to do. They couldn't find any trace of Yang Chen with their spiritual awareness. They were waiting quietly in the air. After a few breaths, there was a sudden tumble under the sea. Then, Ho Yun's golden stick flew out of the water and shot straight at Ho Yun like an arrow. Seeing this situation, Ho Yun subconsciously grabbed the stick's shadow, but his body was still slightly shaken by the power carried by the big stick. The tumble under the sea became more and more intense. What surprised Ho Yun and Gong Sunling was that even the island below them began to shake violently, as if there was an earthquake under the sea. Suddenly, Ho Yun thought of a possibility and his eyes widened in an instant. He looked down incredulously, looking forward to the moment when the answer would be revealed. Chapter 847. Yang Chen did not let the two of them wait too long, and soon appeared in front of the two of them. However, he appeared with most of the island. The small island in the sea suddenly stopped shaking, and then suddenly rose up. The speed of the rise was very fast, almost in a breath or two, it became level with the two people in the air. An island suddenly rose from the sea level. Although the island was not very big, it was also very spectacular. In particular, the island was constantly splashing water into the sea, and the island was shaking unstably. The sound and the scene as a whole gave people a very shocking feeling, as if they were witnessing the creation of the world with their own eyes. The island continued to rise, and the part that rose from the sea level was already hundreds of feet high. Then Ho Yun and Gong Sunling saw the figure of Yang Chen. Yang Chen himself was under the island that had already flown up hundreds of feet high. The island had no roots, but it was lifted by Yang Chen below, rising to such a high point. In short, Yang Chen was holding a huge stone hundreds of feet high and several feet wide, and jumping into the air. Because he had not used spiritual power, but pure physical power, Yang Chen was still in the process of jumping, but after a while, he began to fall. Gong Sunling's mouth did not close. This giant rock was more than 1,000,000 jin, but it was directly lifted by Yang Chen and jumped into the air. How much strength did Yang Chen have now? Ho Yun did not have time to marvel, but his face was dignified. Yang Chen was in the air, but he did not stop moving. He directly threw the hill-like rock at Ho Yun. The pressure of Mount Tai made Ho Yun become very excited in an instant. He had never encountered such a powerful opponent. He stood in the air, and put on a serious posture, intending to catch the giant rock thrown by Yang Chen. As soon as his hands came into contact with the boulder, Ho Yun knew he was in trouble. Just this weight alone was not something Ho Yun could withstand with just his physical strength. However, Ho Yun didn't want to give up. He still wanted to know how much strength he had. He stood under the huge rock and gritted his teeth as he forcibly held on. Inevitably, Ho Yun used his spiritual power. Of course, it was only to allow him to float in the air and support the weight of this boulder. However, Ho Yun couldn't support this boulder with just his physical strength. Although his feet were very stable because of his spiritual power, his bones had begun to crack under the pressure. Ho Yun's huge and strong body seemed to have swelled to the limit. His swollen muscles almost tore the entire robe apart. The thick blood vessels under his skin also became protruding under the huge force, like small snakes surrounding Ho Yun's body. The sound of heavy breathing was like a huge bellows, and the whistling wind made people feel worried. The loud heartbeat was like a big drum pounding. Gong Sunling, who was not far away, could even hear the sound of Ho Yun's blood flowing in his blood vessels. But in less than 10 breaths, Ho Yun could no longer hold on. His body seemed to be directly bent by the boulder. Ho Yun just withdrew his spiritual power, and his whole person was directly pressed from the air to the bottom of the sea by the huge rock. The moment the boulder hit the sea, it made a huge splash, and soon the boulder disappeared in the sea. The island that could be seen just now had disappeared without a trace, as if there had never been an island here. Yang Chen's figure soon appeared in front of Gong Sunling. The shuttle was called out and Gong Sunling was taken in. The shuttle turned into a sailboat and floated quietly on the sea. The two of them sat on the boat and waited quietly for Ho Yun. Ho Yun finally drilled out of the sea. Relying on the weight alone, even if the boulder was 10 times heavier, it was impossible to hurt Ho Yun, who was in the Deshang stage. However, when Ho Yun came out, he was a little embarrassed. Ho Yun was a serious guy. He would rather be pressed down by the boulder than escape from below. Being smashed into the bottom of the sea by the boulder, it was not a good taste in any case. Mountain picking strength, it really lives up to its reputation. Ho Yun knew that Yang Chen was far from exerting all his power, but he had already shown the realm of mountain picking strength. Just now, that small island, if placed on land, wouldn't it be a hill? In addition to sighing, Ho Yun was also looking forward to it. River-turning strength, I don't know how powerful it will be. In fact, even Yang Chen did not know how powerful the river-turning strength could be. But just relying on his physical body, he pulled up an island and threw it into the air, which had already shocked him. To be honest, even an ordinary Jedon stage master may not be able to do this, but Yang Chun has surpassed it by relying on his physical strength alone. Ho Yun was completely convinced by Yang Chun, and directly dropped a sentence, "I will do whatever you want me to do in the future, follow you, happy." No wonder Shi Kuei and Xie Sha liked to follow Yang Chun out, and now Ho Yun finally experienced that comfortable feeling. On the way back, the three were not lonely at all. In addition to drinking tea and enjoying Gong Suanling's food, it was exchanging cultivation experiences. Yang Chun, naturally needless to say, although Ho Yun has been stuck in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave, after all, he was already in the Deshang stage, and some aspects of his understanding were even more thorough than Yang Chun's. The biggest beneficiary was Gong Sunling. The two took turns to point out, so that Gong Sunling almost avoided all the problems that might be encountered in the Jedon stage cultivation. There was a Mr. Right, there was a transcendental magic weapon, plus the help of hundreds of Yuanying stage masters in the Mountain River geographical map, and there was no suffering in the state of mind. Even if Gong Sunling wanted to become weak, it was impossible. In the absence of Yang Chen's appearance, Gong Sunling could become the first person in the Chunyang Palace in the Jedon stage as long as 10 years. Of course, there was also a premise, that was, Gao Yu's dragon horn flying sword had not been refined. Once Gao Yu's dragon horn flying sword was refined, it would also be a magic weapon of the Dragon Clan. Gao Yu's water and fire spirit power double cultivation, between Gong Sunling, who was the first Jedon stage master, it was hard to say. However, who would care about this kind of reputation? Moreover, even if they wanted to rank, they must add their own husband. Although they didn't know how powerful Yang Chun was now, how could he make Ho Yun bow his head to him, be comparable to the average Jedon stage master? This trip to the South China Sea had been nearly 4 years, and they didn't know what changes had taken place in the Chunyang Palace. The only thing they knew was that whether it was Yang Chun or the people who came out with Yang Chun this time, they all had great gains. For Chunyang Palace, no matter what, it was a great thing. Chapter 848. With Ho Yun there, Yang Chun and Gong Sunling certainly couldn't cultivate the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra on the shuttle. Yang Chun did not dare to cultivate the three purities secret art on this road because of the skyrocketing of his spiritual awareness, for fear that he would soon face the problem of splitting his spiritual awareness. Ho Yun asked Yang Chun about the problem that his spiritual awareness could not be explored. Yang Chun did not tell the truth about this. He just said that he found a magic weapon to hide his spiritual awareness in the sea of no return. When he forcibly suppressed the performance of his spiritual awareness to the Jedon stage, Ho Yun was able to detect the existence of Yang Chun with his spiritual awareness again. Of course, Yang Chun's explanation for this was that the magic weapon could be controlled at will. Ho Yun did not worry about him and believed it. After all, it was too incredible for Ho Yun to believe that a junior in the Jedon stage could have the spiritual awareness of the late Deshang stage. Only Gong Sunling knew that perhaps Yang Chun had really broken through the Deshang stage spiritual awareness. A long time ago, when she and Yang Chun's spiritual awareness double cultivation, Gong Sunling knew how powerful Yang Chun's spiritual awareness was. In this regard, Gong Sunling was also looking forward to it. She wanted to know what kind of realm was the spiritual awareness above the Deshang stage. Beyond the Deshang stage, Gong Sunling had only heard of it, but she had never seen it. Perhaps she would soon be able to experience it from Yang Chun. The Central Plains Dao sects seemed to be normal, and nothing major had happened. In the South China Sea, except for the Taishaman who sent a group of masters headed by Sun Chun, there was no follow-up. It was estimated that the other sect did not know what had happened. Back at Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun, of course, first met his master and reported his safety before going to the head of the palace. As soon as they heard that Yang Chun had returned, the elders in the sect immediately gathered in the conference hall in the cave residence. This time, Yang Chun took 10 Yuanying stage masters of the Hall of Eccentrics, and even took the avatars of Ho Yun and Gue Shanyu out to kill and set fire, which really made the top management of the sect secretly sweat. For this kind of thing, if one didn't handle it well, they would end up being exterminated by others. Palace Master Zhang Jiao even regretted not stopping Yang Chun at that time. Fortunately, the result of the trip made the top members of the sect surprised, and it was going in the most beneficial direction for Chunyang Palace. When the 10 fellows who had committed murder and arson returned with Gue Shanyu's avatar, the satisfaction on their faces after releasing their killing intent, coupled with some kind of unknown enlightenment, could not be hidden from the upper echelons. After these fellows returned, they immediately resumed their closed-door training, leaving Gue Shanyu alone. It was said that they had been in closed-door cultivation ever since they rushed back from the ship. This situation surprised and delighted everyone, and they didn't know what happened. Fortunately, the old tree demon Gue Shanyu did not need to retreat. He was also a guy who participated in the whole killing and could give everyone a solution. After listening to everything Gue Shanyu said, and then hearing that these 10 guys were under the control of the old tree demon, they felt the fire tribulation in advance, including the head of the palace. Almost all the top members almost jumped up. This kind of once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to interfere with the other party's tribulation at any time and let their own masters feel the fire tribulation experience in advance. How could such a group of murderous and arson guys catch up? How important this kind of experience was, which of the elders present did not know? Who didn't know the benefits? How could all the good things be wrapped up by them? It seemed that if she followed Yang Chun out, it really should be the golden belt of murder and arson. For a moment, the group of elders were a little jealous. Why did these guys have such good luck? The benefits of Yang Chen's trip were not only that. Not to mention the benefits of plundering the hidden dragon cave, the agreement with the South China Sea Alliance for the exchange of special products has made Wanbao Tower a lot of money. It was believed that this could be several times the income of Dao Ba's hard work between the monster race and the Dao sections. After all, no matter how strong Dao Ba was, it was only a small-scale team, and it was still incomparable to a large alliance of tens of thousands of people like the South China Sea Alliance. This time, Wanbao Tower would definitely be able to improve to a higher level. This was not counting the unity of people's hearts brought by Yang Chun directly going out to avenge several shopkeepers of Wanbao Tower. Originally, most of these cultivators who joined Wanbao Tower were hopeless disciples of Chunyang Palace. Although the sect would take care of them, they would not pay much attention to them. Yang Chen's large-scale revenge this time made these disciples of Wanbao Tower feel the owner's protection for them. Only with this intention of the owner, everyone would work together to make Wanbao Tower bigger and stronger. Not to mention that Wanbao Tower had always been very generous. The bigger the business, the greater their income. There were already dozens of disciples who felt hopeless. After joining Wanbao Tower for decades, they made a lot of money and got some applicable heavenly materials and earthly treasures from Wanbao Tower. They broke through the bottleneck of cultivation in one fell swoop and saw the hope of cultivation again. Wanbao Tower had dozens of Jedon stage masters joining at this moment. Counting Knife Scar and the masters hired later, their strength was already comparable to a small sect. The benefits of Wanbao Tower were Yang Chen's, but the benefits of the alliance with the South China Sea Alliance were Chunyang Palace's. One more ally meant one more way. Even if the disciples of Chunyang Palace went to the South China Sea in the future, they would also have an organization to shelter them. The old tree demon Gue Shanyu was not very clear about the detailed situation, and Yang Chun explained it in detail. When Yang Chun explained the causes and consequences of the South China Sea Alliance being plotted against, everyone understood that this time, a secret wing of Taishaman had been cut off unknowingly. Later, Yang Chun did not conceal the things about Sun Chun and the others. He heard that the greatest heaven sect had lost 21 Yuanying stage masters. The happy faces of the palace master and the elders were almost smiling. There was no such thing as a cultivation master who was not happy with things or sad with himself. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, it would not change its color. They hit the enemy and strengthened themselves. There were countless material benefits. Their 10 yuanying stage masters gained valuable experience. There was hope for them to cross their tribulation in the future. A hidden master of the Deshang stage could also release his killing intent and improve his cultivation. Everything was so perfect, where was there any dissatisfaction in the sect? Even if there was, the high-level members did not enjoy the baptism of the Fire tribulation. However, this kind of opportunity could not be found, and it was not every time they could encounter the enemy's tribulation. For the matter of the Sea of No Return, Yang Chen did not say much, and the head of the palace and others did not delve into it. Where Yang Chen went to gain experience, that was his choice. Everyone only needed to know that Yang Chen had finished his experience and came back safely. They didn't have to worry about other things. However, everyone gathered together because there was one thing to discuss with Yang Chen. This time, the Taishaman came to Chunyang Palace again. Even if the Taishaman ranked third, it would still be 75 years later. What's more, the Taishaman had not yet ranked third. The Five Elements sect and the Qiankuan sect were also very sensitive. Because of the compensation for the secret plane, the two major sects, which were very close to the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, also got the news relatively early. They had already greeted the Chunyang Palace early in the morning. They couldn't compete with the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, the two allies of the Chunyang Palace, but they could still compete for the third and fourth places. These two sects help. The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect did not object. Even if it was the Taishaman, it was impossible to obstruct. The trouble of the Taishaman lay in this. If the Taishaman were willing to rank fifth, it would take 125 years to be able to treat the three Deshang stage elders. After more than 120 years, it was estimated that the three Deshang stage elders could only barely hang on to their last breath. They used to think that the three elders could recover within a few hundred years, but it was not until 30 years later that the Taishaman discovered that the injuries suffered by the three elders were far from so simple. Their best result was the same as the Black Tiger predecessor in the past. The injuries could not be suppressed, the cultivation base would slowly lose, and finally they would die. It has been dragged for 30 years, and if it was dragged for one more day, there would be a day of change, and the Taishaman would have to bow their heads. This time, it was not only to bow their heads to the Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen, the injured bowed their heads to the doctors, which was not a great shame. The problem was that the Taishaman must also get the understanding of the Five Elements sect, the Qiankuan sect, the Green Jade Immortal Island, and the Blue Cloud sect. These four sects were not the sect that the Taishaman could casually pressure. If they wanted them to nod, the Taishaman must also show enough sincerity. Obviously, the idea of taking advantage of your illness was vividly demonstrated by the four major sects. As a Dao sect, although they couldn't just watch and do nothing, they also didn't use the opportunity of their own sect's development to do favors for their competitors. Without enough benefits, the four major sects would obviously not let go easily. It was not known what price the Taishaman had paid in exchange for the understanding of the four major sects, and they agreed to let the Taishaman be the first to be inserted, and the order of others would be delayed. However, the foreign affairs elder of the Taishaman, Mao Qi, who came to Chunyang Palace to discuss matters, had a very ugly face. With the family background of the Taishaman, Mao Qi would never have such an expression if it was not a heart-wrenching price. The attitude of the Chunyang Palace was very natural. Whoever was first and who was last, according to the order of arrival, it didn't matter if they jumped the queue, as long as the people behind agreed, it was completely fine. However, if they wanted Yang Chen to help refine the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill that could treat the injuries of the 3 elders, the reward could not be compared with the previous refining of the 1st-grade questioning inner heart pill. One was to save lives, the other was to break through. If they lost their lives, how could they break through? In this regard, there was no need for Chunyang Palace to speak. The Taishaman would also take the initiative to raise the standard. Naturally, the materials for alchemy were needless to say. They directly prepared 100 sets, which were absolutely enough for Yang Chen to waste at will. Among the rewards, the fire seeds were naturally needless to say. From low to high, there were 5 kinds of 5th-grade fire seeds, plus 2 kinds of 6th-grade fire seeds, 1 for the 3rd fire and 4th fire. In addition, there were 100,000 volumes of books collected by the Taishaman, as well as 2 fire attribute flying sword carefully refined by the Taishaman's refining master, 1 for the 3rd fire and 4th fire respectively. Whether it was the fire seed or the flying sword book collection, they were arranged according to Yang Chen's preferences. In addition, there were 10 kilograms of top-grade spirit stones, 10 different flavors of spirit spring, 10 kinds of fine wine, hundreds of jars, plus their own brewing methods, and 500 tea trees with different hundreds of years of age. These things were also based on the things that Yang Chen had bought in the auctions in the past. Finally, there was a high-grade medicine garden space and a pill furnace, which had also been refined by the Taishaman's masters for no less than hundreds of years. They were originally intended to be given to some excellent disciples of the sect. In order to invite Yang Chen, they had to bleed a lot. After saying all this, the head of the palace looked at Yang Chen and asked very casually, "How is it? Do you want to promise the Taishaman? If you don't want to, then I will push this matter away." Speaking of rejecting the Taishaman, the head of the palace seemed to take it for granted. It was not the tone that needed to be treated carefully in the past. It was simply a different person from the past. Chapter 850. Do it. Why not? Yang Chen said immediately. The other party sent so many good things, if Yang Chen didn't accept it, he would be stupid. As for the treatment of the enemy's Deshang stage master, Yang Chen would not mind. Since he heard that the young sect master of Taishaman often fainted, Yang Chen had a bigger plan in his heart. He was worried that he couldn't get close to them. The opportunity was sent to his door, why should he push it out? This plan, Yang Chen didn't even mention it to the head of the palace, but there was a draft in his mind. For Yang Chen, was there anything more refreshing than having a knife ready and the enemy automatically sending their body to the door? The head of the palace looked at Yang Chen unexpectedly. It seemed that he wanted to see something from Yang Chen's face. After looking for a while, seeing that Yang Chen seemed to be very serious, he didn't look like he was joking, so he nodded and said, "Well, since you said it can, then give them alchemy." In the end, he added another sentence however, the reward must be sent first. In addition to the personal reward for Yang Chen, Chunyang Palace naturally had many benefits. In this regard, the head of the palace has never been deceived by the false promises of others. If you want to give something, then send it, if you don't send it, then don't talk about it. This time, Taishaman paid a lot of money and gave Chunyang Palace real benefit. 3 fine gold veins, plus 2 high-grade spiritual veins, were enough to be comparable to all the original spiritual veins of Meiqing Mountain. It was not a big deal. The negotiations were naturally handled by the head of the palace and soon Yang Chen returned to Gao Yu's side. It has been another year since he returned from the sea. Although he has not dared to cultivate the 3 purities secret art, his spiritual awareness was still slowly increasing, and it had reached the point where it couldn't be solved. Gong Sunling did not leave Gao Yu's side. The 3 of them didn't talk too much and quickly entered the Immortal's cave. In the abode that they had already prepared, Yang Chen began to cultivate the Supreme Mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra with the 2 women. At first, Gao Yu and Yang Chen cultivated together, while Gong Sunling guarded them. As soon as Gao Yu entered the state of cultivation, she immediately realized that her beloved's spiritual awareness had become so strong that she could not understand it. That was a realm more powerful than the Deshang stage. Gao Yu's realm level, she didn't even know what that realm was called. That was something that would only be paid attention to after reaching the Deshang stage. Unexpectedly, his husband had such a powerful spiritual awareness when he was in the Jedan stage. The more powerful the spiritual sense was, the more proficient the control of magic weapons and spiritual power would be. In addition, there were also countless benefits for refining pills. For Yang Chen to be able to reach the level of a 5th-grade alchemist master in this realm of cultivation, it was not without its strong spiritual awareness. However, for Yang Chen, the rapid growth of his divine sense would bring about the serious consequences of his divine sense splitting. Although the ultimate goal of the Three Purities' secret art was to split the divine awareness, it did not mean that the earlier the split, the better. At this point, Yang Chen was clear. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling were equally clear. Gao Yu frantically wanted to occupy control in the double cultivation and dominate the cultivation of the two. She just wanted to do her best to reduce the realm of Yang Chen's divine awareness slightly, so that there would no longer be the danger of the divine awareness splitting. However, this time's cultivation was completely different from the past. When Yang Chen's divine awareness was still in the Deshang stage, Gao Yu was barely able to dominate the latter few cultivation sessions. But now, even if Gao Yu has done her best, she still can't shake Yang Chen's divine awareness. Easily, Yang Chen gained the initiative of the cultivation. Even Yang Chen didn't even have this kind of idea, everything was done spontaneously. The realm of the 1st-grade human immortal had already exceeded the limit of this world. Even if Gao Yu already had the middle Yuanying stage divine awareness, she still had no resistance. Soon, the two entered the process of double cultivation under the unconscious but spontaneous leadership of Yang Chen. Yang Chen's divine awareness was like a vast mountain, a magnificent sea, but Gao Yu herself was like a small boat, involuntarily swaying with Yang Chen's divine awareness, drifting with the current without a trace of resistance. Gao Yu only felt that her Langjun, her original apprentice, at this moment seemed to have become the master of the world, firmly controlling her body and mind. She didn't need to do anything at all, it seemed that as long as she followed his footsteps, she could break through the shackles of the world. This silent feeling of being conquered made Gao Yu so intoxicated. In Yang Chen's arms, it was so warm, so it made people yearn for it. Gao Yu was immersed in this feeling, and was completely unable to extricate herself. Her own heart, her own spirit, she hated that she couldn't put everything into this little enemy, and become one with Yang Chen. In this unconscious tacit understanding between both sides, Yang Chen and Gao Yu's divine awareness changed again. Gao Yu's divine awareness continued to rise, directly breaking through the middle Yuanying stage, straight to the late Yuanying stage. Without stopping, it was still soaring. Yang Chen, on the other hand, began another change. Now the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra double cultivation could no longer make his divine awareness grow, but it condensed and compressed Yang Chen's current divine awareness as much as possible. The increasingly pure and condensed divine awareness effectively organized the possibility of the divine awareness splitting, and temporarily allowed Yang Chen to not worry about it again in a short period of time. After a divine awareness double cultivation, Gao Yu's divine awareness directly soared to the peak Yuanying stage, until it could no longer be improved. However, Yang Chen's divine awareness was still above the realm of the human immortal 1st grade, and it could no longer subside. It was just that, after this divine awareness double cultivation, the realm of the divine awareness was more stable, and the divine awareness was more condensed. The next change was Gong Sunling and Yang Chen's cultivation, and Gao Yu's protector. The same result as Gao Yu, after a divine awareness double cultivation, Gong Sunling's divine awareness soared to the peak Yuanying stage. Similarly, Yang Chen's divine awareness realm did not fall at all. The only gain was that the divine awareness was more stable, more condensed, and more pure. The two-double cultivation with the two women temporarily eased the threat of the divine awareness splitting for Yang Chen. At least now he could continue to cultivate the three purities secret art, instead of the state of being unwilling to cultivate. Within a year or two, Yang Chen would not have to worry about the threat. However, to completely solve this problem, a more effective method was needed. Perhaps, with the dancing snow fairy Sun Qingxue and the cold plum fairy Shi Shanshan, the two fiancés who have never cultivated the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra, they could buy more time for Yang Chen. Chapter 851. The two women failed to let Yang Chen completely solve the threat, and they were a little disappointed in their hearts. Even if their own spiritual awareness reached the peak Yuanying stage realm, it could not dilute this regret. Although they knew from the beginning that the effect of the two of them would not be very good, after all, they were still somewhat lucky. What's more, in the hearts of the two women, there was no intention of forming an alliance to temporarily resist Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. If the two women could solve it, wouldn't it be possible to let Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue have less contact with Yang Chen? Yang Chen didn't expect the two women to have such thoughts. With this 1 or 2 years, he could find Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan and stabilize the realm of his spiritual awareness. The three purities secret art split his spiritual awareness. It was best to go to the spiritual world, which was very good for future development. But if there was no way, it would be split in the mortal world, but it would take more hard work to improve the realm in the future. Anyway, Yang Chen already has the three purities secret art, this kind of heaven-defying killing weapon. Even if it was hard, it was much stronger than ordinary cultivators. Now there were only two people, Gao Yu and Gong Sunling. Yang Chen did not hide anything from them, and simply talked about his harvest in the Sea of No Return. Of course, those adventures were not detailed, just that he got some help from the Dragon Yuan, and all the realms had been improved. Yang Chen's cultivation base was enhanced, and the two women were naturally happy. As for the Dragon Palace, the two women only listened to it, especially when they heard some wonderful things. They were even more energetic. On the contrary, where Yang Chen got the keys, they didn't care at all. In fact, the two women had long known that Yang Chen had found the legendary Dragon Palace. Otherwise, where did the mountain river geographical map and the two water and fire dragon horns come from? It was also very normal to have more Dragon Clan magic weapons. Happy, Yang Chen carefully took out the broken map of the South China Sea and placed it on the ground. Ling, try and see if the mountain river geographical map can collect this sea map. Yang Chen said to Gong Sunling, who was admiring the Dragon Clan magic weapon. Back in the Dragon Palace, Yang Chen already had this idea. Since the South Sea nautical map had been broken, it was better to let the mountain river geographical map absorb it. They were all treasures of the Dragon Palace, and came from the same source. Maybe there would be an unexpected surprise. Gong Sunling treated Yang Chen's words as an imperial edict. After all, those were her husband's orders. Gong Sunling did not neglect and immediately began to try to manipulate the geographical map. With more than 100 Yuanying stage masters, Gong Sunling was now able to control the geographical map of the mountain river, and it was very handy. In the face of this kind of uncontrolled, motionless and damaged Dragon Clan magic weapon, it was like a Yuanying stage master. It was easily absorbed. But soon, Gong Sunling quickly sat on the ground and began to control the fusion of the two magic weapons. This process came so suddenly that even Gong Sunling was not prepared at all. When Yang Chen saw it, he hurriedly went up to help. It was also the cultivation method of the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra, but it was consciously strengthening the power of Gong Sunling's spiritual awareness to control the geographical map of the mountain river. The peak Yuanying stage spiritual awareness, it was indeed a bit difficult to control the fusion of the two magic weapons, but after Yang Chen joined, there was immediately a qualitative change. Not to mention that Yang Chen's spiritual awareness had reached the first grade of the human immortal, but Yang Chen and Xiao Tian had a master-servant relationship. In Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, there was a trace of Xiao Tian's aura. This aura of the Dragon Clan was the key to controlling the Dragon Clan's Mountain River geographical map and the South China Sea map. As soon as Yang Chen exerted his strength, there was no pressure on Gong Xuanling's side, and she became relaxed. The fusion of the two magic weapons also began to be carried out in an orderly manner. What surprised Gong Xuanling was that these two magic weapons were not just a simple fusion of the dragon magic weapons, but the sea map aroused further changes in the Mountain River geographical map. The Mountain River geographical map had a characteristic. The places passed by would be formed into a virtual reality geography by the Mountain River geographical map. The more places passed by, the larger the virtual geographical area of the mountains and rivers, and the stronger the power of the Mountain River geographical map. Now, the absorption of the South China Sea map directly added a whole terrain of the South China Sea to the Mountain River geographical map. Although it was a fragmented map and there was no ability to absorb spiritual power, the map was still perfect. In the process of fusion, the entire South China Sea was drawn in the Mountain River geographical map bit by bit. When the fusion was completed, a complete terrain of the South China Sea had been added to the Mountain River geographical map. The part bordering the East China Sea was also integrated into one, and there were no parts of each other. The area in the entire Mountain River geographical map had more than doubled. Not only that, in the original map of the South China Sea, there was also a map of all the rivers and water networks flowing from the Central Plains continent to the South China Sea near the sea. In the process of fusion, all of them were drawn in the Mountain River geographical map. In just a few days, the power of Gong Xuanling's Mountain River geographical map had doubled. The increase in the area of the Mountain River geographical map also promoted the cultivation of the Yuanying stage masters in the map. Their cultivation made it easier for Gong Xuanling to sacrificially refine this Mountain River geographical map. Just in these few days, the Mountain River geographical map had been reborn. Even as long as it was not a desperate fight, this Mountain River geographical map already had the power to fight with the General Master for a few hours. Of course, the higher the cultivation of the opponent, the shorter the time that the Mountain River geographical map could fight. Gong Xuanling simply had a big killing weapon out of thin air, and also a weapon for self-defense and attack. No one knew that the world-famous array cultivator of Chunyang Palace now had the strength to fight against some Yuanying stage masters. Here, Yang Chen and his two fiancées were cultivating, and over there, the Taishaman could not wait to send the rewards and raw materials for alchemy to Chunyang Palace. They only hoped that Yang Chen could start immediately, so that their injured elders could be freed from the torture of pain and become masters of the Deshang stage again. However, this plan was doomed to fail. After this trip to the Dragon Palace, with the help of the Dragon Yuan, Yang Chen made a great improvement. If he did not take advantage of the time to digest and absorb this power, and did not take advantage of this time to realize more about life, he would be a fool. No matter how reluctant Gong Xuanling and Gao Yu were, Yang Chen still set off on the road to meet with Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. Before alchemy for the greatest heaven sect, Yang Chen must also solve his own hidden dangers. Otherwise, if the refining of the pill was disturbed halfway, even if Yang Chen was a 5th-grade alchemist master, it would be a pity that he couldn't sleep at night. He just didn't know what kind of surprise Shi Shanshan and Gong Xuanling would bring him this time. Chapter 852. Even the Taishaman needed help from Yang Chen, coupled with the influence of the Blue Cloud sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Qianquan sect of the Five Elements sect. Now there were still some blind guys who dared to hit Yang Chen's idea. It was absolutely that they were tired of living. At this point, the Taishaman could be regarded as a remedy, and it was also another way of killing people. After Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace agreed to refine medicinal pills for the Taishanmen, at least 14 secret killer organizations that had accepted the task of assassinating Yang Chun were uprooted. The heads up and down were sent to the Pure Yang Palace and placed behind the series of heads to deter the night and night. Yang Chun could even guess that these killer organizations were definitely hired by the Taishanmen at the time, and now they turned their backs on them. Their heads became the weight for the Taishanmen to please Yang Chun, and at the same time, it also cut off the possibility of them saying that the Taishanmen had done such an act. Of course, Yang Chun must know that the Taishanmen had made a move, and the lives of 6 Yuanying stage masters were solved in one move. It was absolutely impossible to hide it. These heads were the sincerity of the Taishanmen now, and it was also an attitude of the Taishanmen. If you ask for help, you must have the proper attitude. As for how the Taishanmen would react after this incident, that was another matter. In this world, there were no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. When there were no interests, friends could also become enemies. Yang Chun smiled and accepted this sincerity. The merit ring was filled with the sincerity sent by the Taishanmen, and he set foot on the road to the Green Jade Immortal Island. The large and small fire seeds always took time to absorb and integrate, but Yang Chun did not have this time now. He must first find the 2 women to solve his spiritual awareness problem. Fortunately, Shi Shanshan was teaching her apprentices in the sect, so Yang Chun easily met his fiancée. In the Green Jade Immortal Island, Yang Chun was not an ordinary welcome. Those who helped Yang Chun to receive disciples, basically everyone could get some small gifts from Yang Chun. Although it was only a first-grade inner sensing pill that was not worth much money, this was given by a 5th-grade alchemy master, and it was still useful for everyone. The disciples in charge of the Mountain Gate reception, everyone was full of expectations for the reception of Yang Chun. "You're here." The moment she saw Yang Chun, Shi Shanshan's eyes flashed a hint of surprise, but she immediately returned to normal and asked with her usual indifferent voice. In front of her apprentices, Shi Shanshan had to maintain that cold appearance. "Greetings, master." Shi Shanshan's female disciple had almost the same personality as Shi Shanshan. The female disciple of Shi Shanshan had almost the same personality as Shi Shanshan. When she saw Yang Chun appear, she just bowed and saluted, but there was no other performance. This disciple's qualifications were also very excellent, the same beautiful as a flower but cold as frost. Under the guidance of Shi Shanshan, her cultivation base was not low. She was already at the peak foundation stage and was about to condense her core. This disciple's aptitude was also very excellent, the same beautiful as a flower, but cold as frost. Under the guidance of Shi Shanshan, her cultivation base was not low, she was already at the peak of the foundation stage, and she was about to condense her Dan. "A small gift for the first meeting, take it and play with it." Yang Chun was not biased, and also sent the 1st-grade inner sensing pill. In addition, there was a 2nd-grade inner sensing pill. He believed that if her perception was enough, relying on these medicinal pills, it would be enough for her to quickly condense her Dan. "Thank you, master." Shi Shanshan's female disciple's perception was indeed not low, and she was very smart. Of course, she had heard of Yang Chun's name. She could see that one of the medicinal pills was different from the others. She suppressed the joy in her heart and thanked Yang Chun calmly. This master who looked ordinary was not an ordinary person now. Not to mention the 5th-grade alchemist master, he also defeated her master in the same realm. She couldn't help but be shocked. How was the combat effectiveness of Shi Shanshan? Her disciple was the clearest. Yang Chun did not show the mountain and did not reveal the water, but his combat effectiveness was actually strong to such a point. Soon, only Yang Chun and Shi Shanshan were left here. Others were very discerning and left at the right time, even the disciple of Shi Shanshan was no exception. She was smarter than anyone else, and was the first to leave after getting the things. Shi Shanshan casually made a restriction, and the space here became a private space for the two people, and no one would disturb them. Subsequently, Shi Shanshan looked at Yang Chen's eyes, and there was a little more gentleness. Yang Chen gently took Shi Shanshan's slender jade hand and sat down at the table together. With a little force, Shi Shanshan leaned into Yang Chen's arms. Neither of them said much, but there seemed to be a different kind of joy in their hearts. The feeling of reunion after a long separation was so wonderful. If someone saw Shi Shanshan's current appearance, they would be shocked and their jaws would fall to the ground. The Winter Plum Fairy, who was usually as cold as ice to everyone, actually had such a gentle side. Any lecher who dared to make a move on Shi Shanshan could not escape death. Yang Chen's lecherous hands could be so presumptuous, it really made people gnash their teeth in envy and jealousy. Although the action was intimate, Shi Shanshan's words were not much, almost nothing. Apart from the first "you're here," there was nothing else. Nestled in Yang Chen's arms, Shi Shanshan's body also softened, as if all the previous perseverance had been put down. In Yang Chen's place, she did not have to maintain her face and responsibility as a genius disciple, she could completely relax. A few days ago, I promised to refine pills for the Taishanmen, and the Taishanmen gave me 500 old tea trees. In the future, you and I will have the good fortune to eat. Yang Chen said with a happy news. In addition, there are a few spirit springs. When the time comes, you have to help me taste them. This news really made Shi Shanshan happy. Although she still did not speak, the smile on her face became wider, and she nodded heavily. The Taishanmen gave this kind of thing. It was obvious that they were indirectly flattering Shi Shanshan, Yang Chen's fiancé. Before the alchemy, I need you to help me with something. Yang Chen did not talk much nonsense, and straightforwardly stated his purpose of coming. Shi Shanshan did not know why today. It seemed that she did not want to talk anymore. She just looked up at Yang Chen and nodded heavily. It seemed that she did not ask what Yang Chen wanted her to do. As long as it was Yang Chen's needs, she could satisfy them. There is a little problem with my spiritual awareness cultivation. Yang Chen still told the truth, but kept a little bit of it. I need you and I to have a spiritual awareness double cultivation to recuperate. Spiritual awareness double cultivation? Shi Shanshan's brows wrinkled. What? Is there a problem? Yang Chen asked subconsciously. If Shi Shanshan could not do it, then he could only find Sun Qingxue. I am already your fiancé, of course there is no problem with double cultivation. Shi Shanshan shook her head. Do you have a suitable cultivation method? The cultivation method of the Green Jade Immortal Island. If you want to cultivate, you need the approval of the island master. Chapter 853. It turned out to be a problem with the cultivation method. Yang Chen was relieved for a while. The cultivation method of the Green Jade Immortal Island would not be bad, but compared with the highest mystery Yin Yang Heart Sutra, it was definitely not on the same level. At this point, Yang Chen could use his life to guarantee it. In fact, even if Yang Chen needed it, the Green Jade Immortal Island would definitely sell Yang Chen this face. It was just a spiritual awareness double cultivation method. Could it be compared with the favor of a fifth-grade alchemist master? I have the cultivation method here. Yang Chen gave Shi Shanshan an affirmative answer. On your side, do you want to explain it to the sect? Shanshan is already a member of the Yang family in this life. You don't have to think about it too much. Shi Shanshan shook her head slightly and explained, I just don't want you to always owe others a favor, even if it's Shanshan's own sect. For cultivators, the debt of gratitude was a great thing. Once there was the trouble of a favor, when it could not be paid off, it would be a great obstacle to cultivation. In the process of cultivation, it was a light case, and it could even endanger one's life. Shi Shanshan's move was also for the sake of Yang Chen. This kind of favor was different from the kind that Sun Qingxue owed to Yang Chen, and the favor that the Blue Cloud sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island owed to Yang Chen was also different. The former was his own family, but the latter was the sect, which had nothing to do with the individual. Moreover, even if the sect asked Yang Chen to do something, he had to pay the corresponding price. It was considered as repaying this favor, and it would not affect his personal cultivation. Shi Shanshan was afraid that Yang Chen would be fettered, although with Yang Chen's current alchemy level, this kind of favor could be easily paid off. However, this kind of thing was still the less the better. Otherwise, a lot of time was spent on human relations, which was also an obstacle to cultivation. This kind of intention, Yang Chen had to appreciate it. For Yang Chen, Shi Shanshan didn't even consider the Green Jade Immortal Island, and her mind was completely on Yang Chen's side. This made Yang Chen very grateful. He couldn't help but hug Shi Shanshan tighter, and his lips covered Shi Shanshan's lips without hesitation. Closing her eyes and enjoying Yang Chen's caress, Shi Shanshan seemed to be indulging in it. It was only in Yang Chen's arms that Shi Shanshan wasn't the high and mighty heaven's favored one, but an ordinary woman whom Yang Chen loved wantonly. This kind of complete relaxation could only be achieved when he was by Yang Chen's side. Even in front of his own master, he couldn't achieve the same. This was because Yang Chen had defeated her in 10 different ways. No matter which method he used, Shi Shanshan was unable to achieve it. This kind of master who made Shi Shanshan completely unable to raise the idea of matching him was the lover in Shi Shanshan's mind. The lover of the cold plum fairy should be this kind of indomitable hero. If it was anyone else, it would be impossible for Shi Shanshan to be so convinced. With this kind of love, Shi Shanshan didn't even want to leave Yang Chen's lips. She just quietly enjoyed this feeling of not having any burden. After Yang Chen enlightened her last time, she let go of those unnecessary burdens. But only in front of Yang Chen could she completely put it down. In front of others, she was still the cold and unparalleled cold plum fairy. With Yang Chen's consideration, Yang Chen didn't even have to tell Shi Shanshan to keep his spiritual awareness secret. He believed that Shi Shanshan would naturally keep her mouth shut for him. The character of the cold plum fairy, Yang Chen knew it in his previous life. Although the highest mystery Yin Yang Heart Sutra was mysterious, for a cultivation genius like Shi Shanshan, it was not too much of a problem. Soon Shi Shanshan understood the cultivation method. After trying to cultivate it on her own once, she began double cultivation with Yang Chen. As soon as she entered the state of cultivation, even the calm Shi Shanshan, who never put anything in her eyes, was shocked by the realm of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. The masters of the Green Jade Immortal Island added up. It was estimated that Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was not as strong. Shi Shanshan almost forcibly suppressed her horror, so she didn't let herself scream. Even so, this time it was impossible to continue the cultivation, so she could only stop. How could this be? The last time she fought with Yang Chen, Shi Shanshan was once oppressed by Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, but at that time it was obviously not like now. In just a few years, Yang Chen has grown to such a point, Shi Shanshan couldn't help but be shocked. There was a little opportunity. Yang Chen downplayed the process to the extreme, but also explained the reason. The spiritual awareness is too strong. My cultivation method will cause the spiritual awareness to split, so I have to use the spiritual awareness double cultivation to ease it. Shi Shanshan finally accepted that the realm of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness had surpassed this world, and then immediately felt the sweetness in her heart. Yang Chen certainly asked Shi Shanshan to help, but did he not mean to help Shi Shanshan in turn? After stabilizing her emotions, Shi Shanshan finally succeeded in entering the state of double cultivation with Yang Chen. The effect of Shi Shanshan's first cultivation was very outstanding as Yang Chen expected. Originally, Shi Shanshan's spiritual awareness was infinitely close to the early Yuanying stage. In this cultivation, she was guided by Yang Chen's spiritual awareness and began to rise steadily and rapidly. The early Yuanying stage, the middle Yuanying stage, the late Yuanying stage, all the way to the peak Yuanying stage, then it stopped, and then it began to condense and purify incredibly. Yang Chen also gained huge benefits. The realm of the spiritual awareness did not decline wildly because of this, and it still stayed in the realm of the first-grade human immortal. Beyond the level of this world, even if Shi Shanshan was promoted from the peak Zhedan stage to the peak Yuanying stage, Yang Chen's realm would not be affected in the slightest. The biggest advantage of the double cultivation between the two was that Yang Chen's spiritual awareness realm began to completely stabilize. Yang Chen was so worried about the splitting of the spiritual awareness. He was afraid that in the mortal world, he had not experienced the baptism of the three disasters, and the forced splitting of the spiritual awareness realm would cause many problems in the future. Now there was no such worry at all. His spiritual awareness was so stable that it was not much worse than the situation of the thunder tribulation, fire tribulation, and wind tribulation. Even if Yang Chen began to split his spiritual awareness now, he did not have to be afraid of the subsequent troubles. This time, Yang Chen's worries were completely eradicated. Next there was Sun Qingshu. Yang Chen believed that after double cultivation with Little Shui, at least within 200 years, even if he was promoted to the Yuanying stage, he would not have to worry about the trouble of splitting his spiritual awareness. As for the future, the splitting was splitting. Anyway, the ultimate goal of the three purities' secret art was to split the spiritual awareness. Shi Shanshan this time was a thorough understanding of the horror of her husband. With such a spiritual awareness realm in this world, where could Yang Chen not go? Because of her husband, at this moment, Shi Shanshan had never been so proud. Chapter 854. After cultivating with Shi Shanshan in the Green Jade, Immortal Island for a month, and after Shi Shanshan's realm was completely stabilized, Yang Chen left. Of course, it was also necessary to pay a visit to the Lord of Tantai. Now the Lord of Tantai and others were indescribably kind to Yang Chen. Looking at Yang Chen's eyes was the kind of naked eyes looking at a son-in-law, kind and happy. The Green Jade Immortal Island was originally the second, but now it was the third. However, the Taishaman bled a lot this time, and the Green Jade Immortal Island had gained a lot of benefits. These were all related to Yang Chen, and everyone looked at Yang Chen with a smile on their face. With the relationship between Shi Shanshan and Yang Chen, coupled with the cooperation of Chunyang Palace, the Green Jade Immortal Island was not worried at all that they could not get the needed medicinal pills from Yang Chen. Even if they couldn't catch up with the time when Yang Chen was refining medicinal pills, couldn't they get 1 or 2 extra alchemy opportunities from Shi Shanshan for Yang Chen? Now from the Lord of Tantai to the elders below, no one opposed the marriage between Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan. Although Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan's spiritual awareness double cultivation was considered to act first and report later, it was also unanimously recognized by everyone. At least with this layer of relationship, Yang Chen could no longer get rid of the Green Jade Immortal Island. When leaving the Green Jade Immortal Island, Shi Shanshan was as cold as ever on the surface. Only when she was in front of Yang Chen would she show a little bit of reluctance from some infatuated actions. Once the proud genius was conquered, her whole heart seemed to be on her beloved. When I pass this level, I will marry you together and never separate from you. Yang Chen also knew Shi Shanshan's thoughts and gave her a small promise. I won't tell anyone about your divine sense. Shi Shanshan was aware of the severity of the situation. Moreover, she was wholeheartedly focused on the Great Way. She only indulged in it for a short while. She calmly bid farewell to Yang Chen. You can focus on your work. Cultivation is more important. After bidding farewell to Shi Shanshan reluctantly, Yang Chen rushed to Blue Cloud Sect. The reaction of the senior members of the Blue Cloud Sect was the same as that of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Elder Hua Wanting seemed to be eager to marry her apprentice. She was very enthusiastic to greet Yang Chen, leaving a large amount of intimate time for Yang Chen and Sun Qingxue. Elder Hua knew his apprentice's thoughts on Yang Chen. Sun Qingxue had a strong attachment to Yang Chen from the beginning before she became his disciple. Now Yang Chen went to the Green Jade Immortal Island first and stayed for a month, which made Elder Hua have a sense of crisis. He was afraid that Yang Chen would not pay attention to Sun Qingxue because of this. It was one thing for Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan to form an alliance to deal with Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, but it was not that there was no competition between Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. Sun Qingxue did not worry about this, but Elder Hua had to plan for the happiness of his apprentice. For his beloved apprentice, Elder Hua had put in a lot of effort. Obviously, when Sun Qingxue saw Yang Chen, she was quite happy. When there was no one else, almost the whole person hung on Yang Chen and did not come down. Her little mouth kept chattering, which was in sharp contrast to Shi Shanshan's words. Yang Chen was also happy to comfort Sun Qingxue, holding her all the time, making the little girl happy like a cheerful koala bear. The smile on her face did not fade from the beginning. It was not until Yang Chen said that there was a problem with his spiritual awareness that the little girl's expression changed greatly. How could this be? Sun Qingxue's face was full of worry. She also came down from Yang Chen and looked at Yang Chen with concern. The look of worry was overflowing. It's not a big problem, I just don't want a certain step to happen in advance. Yang Chen reached out and stroked Sun Qingxue's little face, smoothing out the wrinkles on her face because of worry, so, I need your help. How can I help? Sun Qingxue immediately realized something and hurriedly asked, can double cultivation help you? Spiritual awareness double cultivation. Yang Chen slightly corrected some of Sun Qingxue's statements. There is no need to go to the point of double cultivation. I will go to the scriptures pavilion to see if there is any good spiritual awareness double cultivation method. Completely different from Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue did not consider whether the blue cloud sex cultivation method would have any obstacles for Yang Chen and went directly to find it. She was also different from Shi Shanshan. Sun Qingxue had a master in the Deshang stage, and her confidence in the sect was completely different. I have a ready-made cultivation method. Yang Chen stopped Sun Qingxue's surprise and passed the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra to Sun Qingxue. After getting the cultivation method, Sun Qingxue immediately reported to her master, and then pulled Yang Chen to start the retreat. After just practicing the cultivation method twice, she pulled Yang Chen to start the cultivation. Sun Qingxue was also shocked by the state of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, but she was not as shocked as Sun Qingxue, but thought that this was the trouble of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. After all, no matter who has such a spiritual awareness, there would always be the possibility of being unable to control it. For the first spiritual awareness double cultivation, Sun Qingxue's performance was 100 times better than Shi Shanshan's. At least she did not stop because of the shock. Instead, with the idea of sharing the burden for Yang Chen, she forcibly suppressed the shock and entered the state. Sun Qingxue's spiritual awareness began to soar rapidly and steadily, straight to the peak Yuanying stage. However, these changes that could make people ecstatic seemed to be completely meaningless in the eyes of Sun Qingxue. She was just worried about whether Yang Chen's problem had been solved. After the cultivation was completed, Sun Qingxue immediately began to ask Yang Chen, "Is it better?" Sun Qingxue stared at Yang Chen's face tightly, for fear that Yang Chen would say something bad. "I'm fine now." Yang Chen happily gave Sun Qingxue an answer, "Better than ever." After the double cultivation with Sun Qingxue, the stability of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness had reached a jaw-dropping level. Even in the memory of Yang Chen's previous life as a great principal golden immortal, his spiritual awareness had not been so stable until the celestial immortal realm, nor had it been so condensed. As for the trouble of the spiritual awareness splitting, Yang Chen now has no need to worry about it at all. He can fully control the spiritual awareness and control the sea of consciousness. Before reaching the peak of the human immortal, Yang Chen can decide when to split, or never split, until he exceeds the human immortal and enters the earth immortal realm. The three purities' secret art was indeed incredibly powerful. If it wasn't for the three purities' secret art, Yang Chen could not have such achievements. Every time at this time, Yang Chen would think of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. The three purities' secret art was so powerful, which master could capture the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord alive? What kind of story was there in it? These were still far away from Yang Chen. A little mortal could not manage the affairs of the great principal golden immortal. However, the immediate trouble was solved, and Yang Chen could safely carry out the next plan without worrying about other troubles. Chapter 855. Hearing Yang Chen's words, Sun Qingxue finally let go of her heart. Her white and tender little hand patted her chest gently. She took a long breath and looked relaxed. Then, Sun Qingxue seemed to have just discovered the changes in her spiritual awareness, and an unbelievable expression appeared on her face. Sun Qingxue was a genius in cultivation, but she was also a down-to-earth cultivator. Her cultivation method also made her very balanced in terms of spiritual power and spiritual awareness, and there was not much difference. But now her spiritual awareness has suddenly skyrocketed to the peak of the Yuanying stage. Not to mention Sun Qingxue, any cultivator would understand what this meant. She was originally a genius in cultivation. At this moment, Sun Qingxue's future path of cultivation would no longer have any obstacles, and she could go straight to the sky. Sun Qingxue, who was ecstatic, could no longer suppress her joy and hugged Yang Chen. The tears of joy could no longer be held back and fell directly, like a string of crystal pearls. Sun Qingxue, who seemed to want to rub herself into Yang Chen's body, completely released her emotions after experiencing Yang Chen solved the trouble and her own cultivation base improved. After crying happily for a while, Sun Qingxue put her arms around Yang Chen's neck and put her delicate face on Yang Chen's face. Then she took the initiative to print her red lips on Yang Chen's lip. After a long time, the two lips separated, and Sun Qingxue's eyes flashed with a burst of intoxication. Then, she closed her eyes happily, and her red lips came to Yang Chen's ear and said softly, "Big brother Yang, take me." After saying this, Sun Qingxue's face was already flushed, and her delicate body became a little hot. Her face was buried in Yang Chen's neck, and she dared not look up again. Although she was already recognized as Yang Chen's fiancée, it still took a lot of courage to say such words. In Sun Qingxue's heart, she had long regarded herself as Yang Chen's woman. From the moment she met Yang Chen at the execution ground, to when Yang Chen helped her change her master, to the few times they met, Sun Qingxue couldn't forget them. Her heart has long been firmly tied to Yang Chen's body. This time, he finally expressed his thoughts clearly to Yang Chen. The young girl's bashfulness made Yang Chen's heart flutter, and he almost couldn't control himself. The dancing snow fairy, who would be famous in the world in the future, said in his arms that he wanted her. What a proud and longing thing! Now it happened in front of his eyes. It took almost all of his willpower for Yang Chen to resist such an irresistible temptation. After hugging Sun Qingxue for a while, Yang Chen spoke with a wry smile. I have a suitable double cultivation method, but we need to cultivate it after we both reach the Yuanying stage, otherwise it will affect our future realms. When Yang Chen spoke, his heart seemed to be bleeding. What a good opportunity! It was pushed away by himself. You can rest assured that we will get married in a few days. After a few decades, you and I have passed the thunder tribulation and formed my nascent soul. We will always be together and never be separated again. Just as he made a promise to Shi Shanshan, Yang Chen also made a promise to Sun Qingxue. Sun Qingxue was a little disappointed, but she also knew that Yang Chen said it for her and Yang Chen, and she accepted Yang Chen's opinion shyly. For the next month, Yang Chen practiced with Sun Qingxue every day until the realm of Sun Qingxue's spiritual awareness was completely settled and stabilized. The days of gathering were always short, and in a blink of an eye, it was time for Yang Chen to leave. Just like Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue also knew what Yang Chen's spiritual awareness meant. It was a wife's obligation to keep it secret for her husband. Sun Qingxue did not tell anyone about Yang Chen's secret plan of spiritual awareness. Yang Chen no longer had any worries and began to design the plan against Taishimen with all his heart. Everything had to start with Yang Chen refining healing pills for Taishimen. Back to Chunyang Palace, Yang Chen directly made an appointment with the representative of Taishimen. Since Yang Chen promised to refine pills, Taishimen has been sending representatives to Chunyang Palace to contact Yang Chen at any time. Yang Chen left Chunyang Palace and solved his own problems. The people of Taishimen were honestly a little disappointed. Fortunately, Yang Chen only took half a year to return to the sect. Moreover, Yang Chen's attitude was very good. As soon as he returned to the sect, he made an appointment with the representative. I need to see the injuries of the elders with my own eyes to decide what kind of medicinal pills to refine. Knowing that the people of Taishimen were waiting anxiously, Yang Chen did not talk nonsense and directly made a request. How could Taishimen not agree to this request? To tell the truth, this was a responsible attitude. After all, the injuries of the 3 elders of Taishimen were much heavier than those of the 3 elders of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and the Blue Cloud sect. It was hard to say whether the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill could cure it. Yang Chen going to see it could also make the people of Taishimen more relieved. The representative of Taishimen immediately began to arrange, even without consulting the sect. Yang Chen still took the clone of the old tree demon and went straight to Taishimen. This was the first time Yang Chen had set foot on Taishimen since his rebirth. It was still under the circumstances that the high-level Taishimen wanted to kill Yang Chen before. Even now, there were still a large number of high-level officials who wanted Yang Chen to die. When he arrived at the Greatest Heaven sect, it was very comedic that he got the high-style courtesy of the Greatest Heaven sect's high-level officials. The ridicule of reality was nothing more than this. Among the team that greeted Master Yang, there was a young figure that Yang Chen was very familiar with. The young sect master of Taishimen, Li Liheng, as the young sect master, it was not surprising that he appeared on this occasion. Yang Chen and the high-level officials of Taishimen were sharp with each other. When he arrived in front of Li Liheng, he unexpectedly stopped for a while. It was very impolite to look up and down at Li Liheng for a long time. Yang Chen suddenly said something that made everyone surprised. "Young sect master, your spiritual awareness is very interesting, but unfortunately it has a little flaw." After saying this, Yang Chen didn't say anything more and turned to the next elder. Everyone listened inexplicably and didn't understand what Yang Chen meant. But everyone could hear from Yang Chen's words that it seemed that Li Liheng fainted from time to time. Yang Chen should know some of the reasons, otherwise he would not say something like flaws. Li Liheng's fists clenched on the spot and almost lost his composure because of his agitation. Fainting from time to time made Li Liheng suspected in the sect. Now someone finally knew what the reason was. But the most shocked was not Li Liheng, but the sect master and several core elders who knew what cultivation method Li Liheng was practicing. The few of them looked at each other without batting an eyelid, and they all saw the surprise in each other's eyes. If Li Liheng's problem could be solved, didn't it mean that he could contact the predecessors in the spiritual world? Chapter 856. Yang Chen just shook it in front of Li Liheng, and then he never mentioned it again. In Taishimen, Yang Chen easily saw the 3 injured Deshang stage elders. The 3 elders were very closely protected, and it was impossible for ordinary people to come into contact with them, but Yang Chen was an exception. This time, Yang Chen not only saw the 3 elders, but also diagnosed the pulse of the 3 elders, and even asked the 3 elders for some physical feelings. After obtaining the consent of the 3, he explored their bodies with his spiritual awareness. In the face of the only alchemy master of another sect who could recover their injuries, the three injured elders showed complete cooperation, which was the first time in the history of Taishanmen. Soon Yang Chen came to the conclusion that the injuries of the three elders were no problem with the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill. However, because their injuries were too heavy, the entire process of recovery would take longer than the three masters of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and Blue Cloud sect. Even if they took the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, it would take half a year. Yang Chen also said that he had no 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill in his hands, and the whole refining process would take almost 2 years. Counting the half a year of recovery, if the three elders wanted to recover, they would have to wait at least 2.5 years. From sitting and waiting for death to recovering after 2.5 years, the different results were simply a world of difference. Not to mention that it was only 2.5 years, even if it was 20 years, they could afford to wait. 20 years in exchange for 3 masters of the Deshang stage. Which sect would not be happy? Yang Chen only said this, and nothing else was mentioned. Several high-level members of Taishanmen hoped that Yang Chen could mention the topic of the young sect Master Li Liheng, but Yang Chen did not say a word again, as if he had completely forgotten about it. From the moment they entered the territory of the Taishanmen to the moment they left, the clone of the old tree demon Gui Shanyu had been following them closely. Although Yang Chen was already famous now, and the Taishanmen shouldn't have any other ideas, but it was necessary to be on guard. The old tree demon followed him just in case. Once the other party wanted to capture Yang Chen and use various methods to learn the secret of Yang Chen's alchemy realm promotion, Yang Chen was bound to expose the state of his spiritual awareness, which was very unfavorable for his future plans, and Yang Chen was also prepared for a rainy day. Although the other 4 great sect would never allow such a thing to happen, no one knew if the Taishanmen would go crazy or not. The old tree demon was very responsible to control the situation. Both sides were well-mannered until they left, and there was no major conflict. Until Yang Chen's figure disappeared into the sky, the Taishanmen's sect Master Li and several core elders were still looking at the direction where Yang Chen disappeared, and they were unwilling to move for a long time. Sect Master, they are gone. There was still an elder who couldn't stand it and gently reminded them, and the thoughts of several high-level members turned back to the eyes. They looked at each other and felt that they had something to say. Soon, everyone gathered in the core hall of Taishanmen. Only a few elders and sect Master Li who knew the inside story of Li Liheng's cultivation method were present, and there were no more than 10 people in total. He said that about the young sect master. Did he really see it, or did he just hear it and deliberately say it to us? Someone couldn't wait to raise this question. The significance of Li Liheng's cultivation method for Taishanmen was so great that Li Liheng even became the young sect master of Taishanmen just because he sent out thousands of spiritual awareness marks. For this reason, the sect master who had the same surname as Li Liheng also carried some bad reputation. So far, there were rumors inside and outside the sect that Li Liheng was his illegitimate son. These people in front of them all knew that the relationship between the sect master and Li Liheng was by no means the father and son relationship that the outside world speculated. However, none of them would explain it, and would only secretly pay attention to Li Liheng's cultivation. Over the years, Li Liheng had been fainting from time to time, and the 2 consecutive times never exceeded 10 days. They thought that Li Liheng's cultivation had failed, but today Yang Chen's words gave everyone hope. Who was Yang Chen? Although he was not a member of Taishanmen, and even all the people present were eager for Yang Chen to die after refining the medicinal pills for them, no one would doubt his genius in alchemy, nor would they doubt his authority in treating the injuries of some masters. The 3 Deshang stage masters of the Green Jade, Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect, the Black Tiger predecessor of the Beast Taming sect, the 4 Deshang stage masters have proved this point with iron-like facts. Yang Chen said that he could treat the injuries of the 3 elders, and the Taishanmen side would never doubt it. Although they regarded Yang Chen as an enemy in their hearts, on this issue, they did not hesitate to believe in Yang Chen. However, what confused everyone was Li Liheng's problem. The young sect master of Taishaman had a strange disease. This matter has been spread among the cultivators, and Yang Chen must also know it. He said that, in the end, did he really see that there was a problem with Li Liheng's spiritual awareness, or was he using Li Liheng's strange disease as an excuse to deliberately mystify them? I think, maybe this guy said this deliberately. Many people thought so, and immediately someone said it, we sent people to kill him several times, he must also know our previous attitude, otherwise he would not bring that old thing Gui Shanyu this time. This was also a very normal guess. A sentence could make the top leaders of Taishaman headache. If it was them, they would also be happy to say such a sentence. A few of the elders immediately agreed. Most of them held the same view and nodded their heads repeatedly. Only the sect master and the two elders had serious faces and did not express their views. Two light coughs made everyone's words stop, and all eyes were focused on the elder who coughed. Recently, we learned a piece of news from the Green Jade, Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect. The elder waited for everyone to calm down and then slowly said. However, the expression of the speech was indescribably dignified. Cold Plum Fairy Shi Shanshan and Dancing Snow Fairy Sun Qingxue, after Yang Chen recently visited them, their spiritual awareness cultivation base suddenly improved. It is said that they have rushed into the level of the late Yuanying stage, far beyond their previous realm. The elder continued, and according to our people's careful inquiries, Yang Chen's master Gao Yu and senior sister Gong Sunling, their spiritual awareness cultivation base is not under the middle Yuanying stage. Boom, this news suddenly detonated in the council hall. For little guys in the Jedan stage, what does it mean to have the middle and late Yuanying stage spiritual awareness? No one knows better than them. These four people all have a close relationship with Yang Chen, and they have all undergone such changes. Could it be that Yang Chen has any means in terms of spiritual awareness? Chapter 857. In the major sect, there were spies of Taishaman, even in the big sects such as the Green Jade, Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect. After the incident of Liang Xiaoming, Chunyang Palace had a large-scale purge of the disciples, but it was not necessarily possible to completely find out these people with different aspirations. The changes in the spiritual awareness of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue could not be hidden from the masters of their sects, and soon the two major sect discovered the changes in the two women. When asked carefully, they only said that it was related to Yang Chen, and there was no more. The senior officials of the two major sect immediately guessed that this was the work of Yang Chen. Whether it was using medicinal materials or cultivation methods, it was always a benefit for his fiancée. This kind of thing, all the high-level officials soon knew about it, and then there were a few words that spread out. Under the investigation of those who were interested, they soon got the news. Although the specific level of the two women's realm was not clear, it was certain that they were at least in the late Yuanying stage. The news that could reach the elders of Taishaman must have been verified. If the elders said so, it meant that it was not far from the truth. It was not something that anyone could do to let a few little guys in the Jedan stage have the spiritual awareness of the Yuanying stage. Although it was normal for the spiritual awareness and spiritual power cultivation base to be inconsistent, it was not like the four women, where there was a direct difference of a big realm. This could only show one thing. In this regard, Yang Chen had a unique technique. This also showed that in the research of spiritual awareness, Yang Chen also had a level that was no less than that of alchemy. In this case, then what Yang Chen said when he saw Li Liheng, maybe it was true. He really saw the problem with Li Liheng and knew what had happened. Thinking of this, the people in the council hall couldn't help but get excited. If Yang Chen could really solve Li Liheng's problem, then it meant that Li Liheng could practice that unique cultivation method normally. Once Li Liheng could contact the predecessors in the spiritual world, the time when Taishaman ruled the world was just around the corner. However, this was still in everyone's imagination. there was still a practical problem in front of everyone. First, how to verify whether Yang Chen really knew about Li Liheng's problem, and second, what kind of price could persuade Yang Chen to help. This time, the Taishaman had paid a heavy price to allow Yang Chen to refine healing pills for the three elders first. But compared with the fact that the three Dashang stage elders and Li Liheng could successfully contact the predecessors of the spiritual world, they were not on the same important level at all. Even if they had to pay several times the price for Li Liheng, the Taishaman were willing to do so. The focus of everyone's discussion turned to these two problems, and they began to offer their ideas in order to achieve the goal of making Yang Chen take action again. After Yang Chen dropped a bait, he no longer cared about the Taishaman. If he rushed to give benefits to the Taishaman and behaved too actively, it might make people suspicious. Now what Yang Chen had to do was to quickly put on a posture of alchemy. Yes, it was just a posture. Yang Chen did not intend to open the furnace to refine the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill at all. When he proved it to Sun Qingxue last time, he refined 5 Lingji mushroom jade pills. The 3 elders of the 2 major sects used 3, and there were 2 left in Yang Chen's hands. These 2 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills were enough to explain to the Taishaman. Hiring a 5th-grade alchemist master, the medicinal materials were prepared and the success rate was not guaranteed. To put it bluntly, even if Yang Chen consumed all the medicinal materials this time and did not give a medicinal pill to the Taishaman would have nothing to say. The 5th-grade medicinal pill, by no means could be successfully refined once or twice. A Jedon stage master, if he could successfully refine 1 out of 10 furnaces, it was already a heaven-defying achievement. Not to mention that Yang Chen also took out 2 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills, which was enough to explain to the Taishaman. As for how to distribute the 2 medicinal pills to the 3 people, it was not Yang Chen's problem, but the problem of the Taishaman. Yang Chen hoped that this kind of thing would happen inside the Taishaman. The 2 medicinal pills were given to them in anticipation of the civil strife of the Taishaman. The 3 masters of the Dashang stage, each of them had a lot of disciples and grandchildren. Within the big sect there were many factions. The 3 masters of the Dashang stage meant the leaders of the 3 factions. No matter how these 2 medicinal pills were distributed, there was always a master who could not get it. Which faction would be willing to sacrifice their own backer and leader, and the injured of other factions would recover quickly. As long as there was this kind of thought, then the 3 factions would inevitably have discord. If it was light, they would attack each other verbally, and if it was heavy, they might fight. In either case, it could give the high-level leaders of the Taishaman a headache. Even if such a situation happened, the Taishaman could not only not blame Yang Chen, but also vigorously thank him. Not to mention the 2 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills, even if there was only one or even no one, the Taishaman could not say anything. Before the alchemy, they must be prepared to bear this result. This was the rule of asking for alchemy. If the Taishaman were not happy, there were people lining up behind to ask Yang Chen to make a move. They paid a huge price to let Yang Chen make a move. How could the Taishaman let these prices be paid in vain? In fact, from the beginning when the Taishaman made up their minds to ask Yang Chen for alchemy, they had already fallen into a passive position. This was an inevitable thing. If they asked for help, they must have the attitude of asking for help. In the end, they would still be led by the neck by Yang Chen. The civil strife of the Taishaman was already inevitable, but it was just a matter of intensity. For Yang Chen, as long as he could bring trouble to the Taishaman, he would be happy to do it. Such trouble, he could not wait for more of it to happen inside the Taishaman. Even without Yang Chen, the internal friction could slowly nibble away at the strength of the Taishaman. This was only the appetizer prepared by Yang Chen for the Taishaman. The real meal was still behind. Li Liheng's bait had been thrown out, and Yang Chen did not believe that the Taishaman would not swallow this bait. As long as the Taishaman came to the door again, it was the time for the next plan. As for the present, Yang Chen wanted to use the excuse of alchemy to absorb some of the fire seeds sent by the Taishaman and further improve the quality of the profound spirit furnace. The higher the quality of the profound spirit furnace, the higher the success rate of Yang Chen's refining of more advanced medicinal pills, and the more fire seeds stored, the greater the power of Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven-burning fire in the future. This was a process of mutual promotion, and Yang Chen would never waste it. After 2 years, Yang Chen's refining of medicinal pills was completed and the 2 medicinal pills were delivered to the Taishaman. Yang Chen and the head of the palace could first watch a good show of the internal war of the Taishaman. Chapter 858. When Yang Chen began to look like a decent retreat, the people of Taishaman finally breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they waited for 2 years, they would have life-saving medicinal pills. No one would know that Yang Chen's retreat was just to be with his master. When he had time, he would talk about the cultivation experience of controlling fire and water, drinking tea and drinking wine, or spiritual awareness double cultivation. His days were very comfortable. Gong Sunling went out again to perfect her mountain river geographical map. Under the constant exploration of Gong Sunling, the mountain river geographical map broke out with a powerful power. Even in the process of the quenching of the life source magic weapon, it could also attack. This simply subverted the whole concept of the quenching of the life source magic weapon. However, this kind of thing could only be done by Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map. Others did not have the powerful magic weapon of the Dragon Clan. Without hundreds of Yuanying stage and 2 Deshang stage masters trapped in the magic weapon illusion to provide a lot of spiritual power for Gong Sunling to refine the magic weapon, it was impossible to do this. Even Yang Chen could not do it. After returning, Gao Yu checked several times and found that Yang Chen did not have to worry about the problem of spiritual awareness for decades and hundreds of years, so she was relieved. The days with Yang Chen were happy, and Gao Yu was almost the most carefree day. Yang Chen almost took care of everything. At this moment, the two were like normal couples in the mortal world. Except for the fear of affecting the future realm, they did not carry out the final integration. Everything that a husband and wife could do has been done. The Taishaman's refining classics that Yang Chen found in the extreme northern ice field and the experience left by the master were very precious, and they were good things for Gao Yu and Wang Yong. The process of refining the dragon horn flying sword was even likely to be advanced because of these things. Now Yang Chen has hundreds of kinds of fire seeds in his hands. Before and after the 2 major sect plus the rewards of the Taishaman, there were more than 40 kinds of fire seeds of the 5th grade and above. These high-level fire seeds were still scattered for the time being and had not been absorbed into the profound spirit furnace. This period of time was just right to complete these. While leisurely controlling the profound spirit furnace, while loving with Gao Yu, this was a very pleasant thing. 2 years passed in a blink of an eye. The 2 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills were handed over to the head of the palace. He would make the final contact with the Taishaman. Of course, the master of the palace knew the inside story. These 2 Lingji mushroom jade pills were left by Yang Chen last time. With 2 medicinal pills that had long been cured, the Taishaman paid such a big price, and the 2 medicinal pills could also cause civil strife among the Taishaman. Of course, the head of the palace was happy. The head of the palace was very unkind and happily handed over the medicinal pills to the representatives of the Taishaman. On the surface, he was very humble and repeatedly apologized. His own disciples' alchemy skills were not good, and he only refined 2 pills. He was extremely regretful and said a lot of nice words. The Taishaman disciples who received the pills felt bitter in their hearts, but they couldn't utter a single word of complaint. The success rate of alchemists refining medicinal pills was low, and it was still an ordinary medicinal pill, not to mention the 5th-grade medicinal pill. Yang Chen could come up with 2 pills within 2 years. It was already a great refining master. How could they blame Yang Chen? But the problem was that there were 3 injured, all of them were masters of the Deshang stage. Each of them had a lot of disciples and grandchildren. Everyone was evenly matched in terms of power. Whoever gave it first would be a big trouble. No matter which one was left out in the end, it would not be a small storm. Fortunately, the representative of the Taishaman only accepted the medicinal pills on behalf of the elders. It was not up to him to decide which elder to give it to and which elder to leave behind. Otherwise, he would have racked his brains to make this decision. The representative did not have to make a decision, but the high level must make a resolution. 3 elders, that was to say, one must be temporarily sacrificed first. Or it was not a sacrifice. If they wanted Yang Chun to make a move again, they would need to pay a high price again. Balancing the forces of the 3 Deshang stage elders was one thing, and there was another thing. The problem of Li Liheng's spiritual awareness was to find Yang Chun for help in any case. Being able to contact the predecessors in the spiritual world was more than 10,000 times more important than killing Yang Chun. At this time, who would care about the so-called hatred with Yang Chun before? The 2 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills really caused a dispute among the Taishaman. Which of the 3 Deshang stage elders was willing to help others at this time? The disciples and grandchildren almost fought. If there were not a few Deshang stage masters, maybe the Taishaman would directly cause a civil strife. The people on their own side argued endlessly, and they were not willing to be the target of sacrifice. Everyone knew that without the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, it was impossible to recover from the injury. If they did not recover from the injury, there would be no Deshang stage backing, and many people's lives would be very difficult in the future. Based on this reason, countless people were red in the face. This movement could not be hidden from others, at least the Green Jade Immortal Island, Blue Cloud sect, 5 Elements sect, and Qiankuan sect all knew that Yang Chun was refining pills for the Taishaman, and they were all staring at the results. The civil strife that appeared in the Taishaman just let the 4 major sect watch the excitement from afar. Everyone knew the whole story of the matter. They were waiting to see how the Taishaman planned to distribute the 2 medicinal pills to the 3 people. At this time, the high-level Taishaman had to appease both internally and externally at the same time. Several high-level officials took turns to communicate with the 3 injured masters and communicate with their apprentices, trying to reach an agreement. After all, they were the disciples of their own sect, and they couldn't suppress them by force. They could only make various conditions. In the end, everyone discussed with each other, and after more than 3 months of tossing, a decision was made. The 2 elders with the most serious injuries got 2 medicinal pills, and the relatively less injured one, after getting an unknown guarantee from the high-level officials, gave up the competition and waited for the sect to give him a second chance. However, it was almost impossible for the Taishaman to invite Yang Chun in the near future. The 4 major sect would never allow this kind of queue-cutting to happen again and again. If they wanted the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, they could only contact Yang Chun in private and see what conditions could impress Yang Chun. The second refining of the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was successful, and no one had any doubts about Yang Chun. The Green Jade, Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect were fine. They already had a batch of questioning inner heart pills in their hands, but Qiankuan sect and 5 Elements sect began to have headache. For the first time, they dared to ask Yang Chun for medicinal pills. Was it the questioning inner heart pill or the life-saving 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill? Although it was not a long time, the internal disputes of the Taishaman had fallen into the eyes of many people, and everyone's views on the Taishaman had also vaguely changed. In this case, the Taishaman had to bite the bullet and send people to visit Yang Chun again. Chapter 859. This time, it was not a random elder of the Taishaman, but the head of the Foreign Affairs Hall, Mao Qi. It was completely different from the arrogance of the last time when he came with Elder Ming Guangruo. Mao Qi's performance was unusually easygoing. Not only to Yang Chun alone, but to everyone in the Chunyang Palace, It was the kind of smile that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was not known what kind of benefits Hall Master Mao Qi gave to the head of the palace. The head of the palace was full of satisfaction as he called Yang Chen over. Yang Chen had already discussed this matter with the head of the palace. When the Taishamen came to the door, they only needed to open their mouths to ask for benefit. Now it was obvious that they had gotten what they wanted. The head of the palace could not help but be happy. In the past, he still needed to look up to the sect, but now he had to humbly come to the door again and again, putting on a posture of seeking advice, which gave people a sense of satisfaction. Especially when the guy who came to the door was the enemy of his own family, it made people feel this sense of satisfaction to the greatest. Was there anything more delightful than having an enemy who had been bossy in the past send himself to his doorstep with a smile for him to ignore? Hall Master Mao Qi came from afar and brought enough sincerity. Yang Chen, you have to entertain him well. After handing over Hall Master Mao Qi to Yang Chen to receive, the head of the palace had a satisfied smile on his face. He walked 3 steps to express his inner joy and left. When he said that he brought enough sincerity, the eyes of the head of the palace could not wait to become Brother Kong Fong. The kind of satisfaction that made him feel comfortable to the bones was not concealed. He passed his eyes to Yang Chen, wishing that he could loudly tell him in Yang Chen's ear that Hall Master Mao Qi was a very sincere sucker. This disciple has a good idea. I respectfully send off the head of the palace. Yang Chen's answer did not care about the face of Hall Master Mao Qi. His face was full of the expression of a prey falling into a trap. Mao Qi looked at Yang Chen's expression that he was about to make a fortune, and there was no extra discomfort on his face. Hall Master Mao had a smile on his face, but his heart was filled with both joy and sorrow. The performance of the Palace Lord of Chunyang Palace, coupled with the performance of Yang Chen, was exactly what the Taishamen wanted. At the end of the day, it was still a small sect with little experience. Even if it befriended a big sect, it was still a second-rate sect. Even though he was a 5th-grade alchemist, he had never seen anything good. If he had known that this would happen, why did he have to kill him? They had mobilized so many experts, lost 6 nascent soul realm cultivators, and spent so much effort, but it was still not as good as using this method. The sad thing was that those people died unjustly. The happy thing was that Chunyang Palace had accepted those huge benefits. This time, they asked Yang Chen for help, and it might be easy to solve the problem. Hall Master Mao, what brings you here today? Yang Chen sent away the head of the palace and was very polite to Hall Master Mao Qi. He asked with a smile on his face. Grandmaster Yang, I have offended you in the past. I ask Grandmaster Yang to forgive me. Mao Qi was worthy of being the head of the Foreign Affairs Hall of Taishamen. He was very good at communicating with people. He knew that Yang Chen would not be very happy to see him, and as soon as he opened his mouth, he apologized. Yang Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at Mao Qi without saying a word, waiting for him to continue. When Mao Qi said this, it was obvious that he intended to change his strategy. Yang Chen did not refuse and waited for him to make a move. In the future, if the Grandmaster has any requirements, please feel free to instruct me at any time. As long as my Taishamen can do it, I will never refuse. Mao Qi once again stated, My Taishamen is willing to become friends with the Grandmaster. I hope the Grandmaster will give me face. The Grandmaster has refined 2 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills this time. Taishamen is grateful. Mao Qi rushed to Yang Chen and said, However, the Grandmaster also knows that 3 elders in my sect are injured. 2 medicinal pills are not enough. Can I ask Grandmaster Yang to work hard and refine another one? The Taishamen will not let the Grandmaster down. Well said, well said. Yang Chen laughed and asked him politely, What are the benefits? What does the Grandmaster want? Mao Qi also seemed to understand that Yang Chen did not intend to beat around the bush. This was also a good thing for him. Everyone talked about the deal directly, and there was no need to mix any other emotional investment. Otherwise, with the Taishaman's previous behavior towards Yang Chen, it was really hard to say. For the time being, I have enough fire seeds. Yang Chen stared at Mao Qi and said slowly. Taishaman have other things besides fire seeds. Mao Qi quickly said, Grandmaster, please speak. My senior sister has an earth attribute spiritual root, but I don't have any good cultivation methods. I don't know what top cultivation methods Taishaman have to fulfill senior sister's long-cherished wish. Everyone was talking openly, so he did not care about his face and directly asked for it. Asking for a top cultivation method, Mao Qi was silent for a long time. There were many cultivation methods in Taishaman, but to satisfy Yang Chen, it was impossible to believe that ordinary cultivation methods were impossible, even if it was a high-level cultivation method. The top cultivation method that could satisfy Yang Chen, and it had to be an earth attribute, it seemed that only one kind of cultivation method could satisfy him. As an elder and the Foreign Affairs Hall Master, many Taishaman's family background was clear. There was only one kind of cultivation method that could meet Yang Chen's conditions, and that was the Sixth Earth True Secret Art. However, that was prepared for the high-level Taishaman. Even the Sixth Earth True Essence of the Sixth Earth True Secret Art was collected by the Taishaman. The amount was not much, and it was only enough for 2 people to cultivate. Do I really have to give it to Yang Chen? Looking at Mao Qi's hesitation, Yang Chen's face began to smile. The last Sixth Earth True Secret Art of the Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements Secret Art was stored in Taishaman. This was the content in the memory of Yang Chen's previous life. Originally, he couldn't think of how to get the Sixth Earth True Secret Art before destroying the Taishaman. Now that the Taishaman had delivered it to his door, he would not let it go. Mao Qi's hesitation did not last too long. A Deshang stage master and a copy of the Sixth Earth True Secret Art plus the Sixth Earth True Essence could not be compared at all. Even if Yang Chen got the Sixth Earth True Secret Art, it meant that Chunyang Palace knew about it. However, there was no way to collect the Sixth Earth True Essence. Holding the Sixth Earth True Secret Art was just a roll of waste paper. At the moment, Mao Qi immediately made a prompt decision and nodded directly. No problem. In order to show our sincerity, I will give the Master a Sixth Earth True Essence. Okay, the medicinal materials are ready. Within 3 years, I will open another furnace. Yang Chen was also refreshed and immediately agreed. His mouth said it, but his heart was full of joy. The Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements Secret Art, except for the third Fire True Secret Art, the others were finally gathered, and Yang Chen could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Master, alchemy is not in a hurry, I have one more thing to ask. Listening to Yang Chen's promise, Mao Qi also breathed a sigh of relief, and finally one thing was solved. However, this was only one of the requirements, there was still Li Liheng's matter that needed Yang Chen's help. Last time the Master found that my sect's young sect master's spiritual awareness was in trouble, I don't know if there is any way to solve it? Mao Qi asked carefully. This was the most important purpose of this trip. Chapter 860. Mao Qi asked very straightforwardly and went straight to the point. It seemed that he wanted to follow the momentum of the previous deal and ask about this matter and reach a deal. Your young sect master has been in a coma from time to time recently, he must be very worried. Yang Chen asked with a smile. His spiritual awareness has some defects, and this kind of coma will become more and more frequent in the future. I don't know if the master can help my young master. When Mao Qi heard this, he knew that there was a way and asked while the iron was hot. Yang Chen glanced at Mao Qi and asked straightforwardly, "What are the benefits?" "Master, you can ask whatever you want." Mao Qi was very cooperative and took the initiative to hand over the bamboo stick, waiting for Yang Chen to knock at will. A 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was exchanged for the 6th Earth True Secret Art plus a bottle of 6th Earth True Essence. Now the problem of the young sect master of Taishaman was what should be exchanged? Li Liheng's spiritual awareness was very interesting. The spiritual awareness mark could always be in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness and provide direction for the positioning compass at any time. Even the spiritual awareness of Yang Chen, who cultivated the three purities' secret art, could not block it. This had fully demonstrated the special nature of Li Liheng's spiritual awareness. After several consecutive times, Yang Chen also seemed to feel that Li Liheng's spiritual awareness could do some magical things, including a kind of long-distance communication across the two worlds that he had only heard of in the immortal world. In the memory of his previous life, the Taishaman chasing Yang Chen was really puzzling. Even if he killed the young sect master, it should not cause such a huge hatred of the Taishaman. But if it involved this kind of cultivation method, it was very possible. For Li Liheng, in fact, there was no problem with his spiritual awareness at all, and there was no problem with his cultivation. Everything was Yang Chen's trick. To cure Li Liheng, it actually depended on Yang Chen. Yang Chen certainly would not let it go and ask directly, "What do you have?" What he actively wanted was the sixth earth true secret art and sixth earth true essence. Other things had not been put in the eyes of Yang Chen. The important thing was that Yang Chen did not know the other party's trump card, so there was no way to make any specific requests. Your Master Gao Yu changed to a water attribute cultivation method. It seems that there is no good water attribute flying sword. My sect is willing to offer 2 good water attribute flying sword. How about it? Mao Qi tentatively offered. 2 flying sword, compared to the previous remuneration, was a bit shabby. However, Mao Qi did not dare to ask too much, lest Yang Chen be. The best way to make Yang Chen tempted was to give Gao Yu benefits directly to impress Yang Chen. The cultivation method of the young sect master was also a top secret in the sect. Mao Qi could only say that he knew a little bit of it, but he only knew that it was very important. As for the specifics, Mao Qi was not clear. The best way was to let Yang Chen think that it was just treating the spiritual awareness of the young sect master. The only valuable thing might be the identity of the young sect master. The best way was to let Yang Chen think that it was just the treatment of the young sect master's spiritual awareness. The only valuable place may be the identity of the young sect master, and the others were not worth mentioning. The best way was to let Yang Chen think that it was just treating the spiritual awareness of the young sect master. The only valuable thing was the identity of the young sect master. Yang Chen also had the same consideration. He couldn't let the other party know that he already knew this. The price for treating the spiritual awareness defects of a Jedon stage cultivator could not be too high, as long as it was in line with the identity of the young sect master. 2 flying sword, if it was the best flying sword, it was almost enough. At this point, both sides had their own ulterior motive. A good water attribute flying sword? Yang Chen was really moved by Mao Qi. After hesitating for a while, he asked for confirmation. The best. When Yang Chen asked this, Mao Qi had confidence and immediately nodded to give a definite answer. As he said this, he thought in his heart that it was really more useful to please Gao Yu than to please Yang Chen. Deal. Yang Chen directly loosened his mouth and reached an agreement, but he was still afraid that the Taishaman would go back on their word, and added, "When the things are brought, I will start the alchemy." First get the things in hand and then start the alchemy. Obviously he was a little worried about the Taishaman. The pattern of a small sect was like this, it could not be bigger. Mao Qi achieved all his goals and smiled like a flower. It was a pity for the 6 Yuanying stage masters who had died again. They could be moved directly with benefits, but they had to do it, it was a pity. With Gao Yu in Chunyang Palace, Yang Chen would never easily join the Taishaman. From the fact that Yang Chen just asked for benefits for Gao Yu, Mao Qi judged it. However, this seems to be a weakness of Yang Chen in the future. If it is controlled, there may be unexpected effect. Yang Chen got the cultivation method and flying sword for his woman, and the Taishaman got the third 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill that they dreamed of. At the same time, there was also the opportunity to treat the young master's spiritual awareness. It was a win-win situation, and both sides seemed to be happy. When the deal was reached, Mao Qi couldn't wait to rush back to Taishaman to report and prepare things at the same time. Yang Chen also got up and rushed to Qianqiu Pavilion, where he waited for the arrival of the Taishaman's young master Li Liheng at the Wanbao Tower. In order to treat Li Liheng, Yang Chen was no longer willing to rush to Taishaman, so he simply let Li Liheng come by himself. Choosing Qianqiu Pavilion was for the convenience of both sides. This small request Mao Qi agreed. It was natural for patients to go to the doctor for treatment. The Taishaman side seemed very urgent, and everything was ready in the shortest time. Of course, this could also be explained by the importance attached to the masters of the Deshang stage. But whether it was Yang Chen or the Taishaman, they knew that what was really important was Li Liheng. 2 months later, Yang Chen met Mao Qi, the hall master Mao Qi, and the young master Li Liheng, who accompanied him at the Wanbao Tower. The 6th Earth True Secret Art and a bottle of 6th Earth True Essence were first sent to Yang Chen, waiting for Yang Chen to confirm. Also in front of Yang Chen, there were 2 excellent flying swords, 1/9 water and 1/10 water. It was very easy for Yang Chen to determine the authenticity of the 6th Earth True Secret Art and 6th Earth True Essence. It could be seen at a glance when he got it. Mao Qi had a smile on his face and looked at Yang Chen, who just pretended to look at it with a smile. His heart was full of contempt. This person's alchemy level was okay, but the other things were far worse. He pretended to understand and let people see a joke for no reason. However, these contempt for Mao Qi would never be spoken out. He just buried it deep in his heart, and even the smile on his face did not reduce a little. When Yang Chen put away the 6th Earth True Secret Art and 6th Earth True Essence, and then took the 2 flying swords and admired them for a long time, he coughed lightly, indicating that Yang Chen should treat his own young sect master. Yang Chen also knew the meaning of this. He immediately put away the flying sword, greeted the young sect master, and began to treat Li Liheng. Chapter 861. Standing in front of Yang Chen, Li Liheng's heart was very nervous. These days, he was fed up with the faces of some people in the sect. Even though he was the young sect master, sometimes he couldn't do anything about those guys. Hearing that Yang Chen had a way to treat him, Li Liheng almost urged Mao Qi to hurry all the way, just to see Yang Chen as soon as possible and solve his current problem. Yang Chen simply took Li Liheng's wrist pulse, and then in front of Mao Qi, he changed a way that people couldn't understand to check Li Liheng. A very ordinary iron rod, small, smooth and well-proportioned, almost a foot long, was held in the hands of Yang Chen. After I let go, use your spiritual awareness to control this iron rod. How I want you to control it, you control it. Do you understand? Yang Chen told Li Liheng again, and finally asked again. It was so simple, how could Li Liheng not understand, and ignored Yang Chen's commanding tone? He hurriedly nodded, indicating that he was ready, and let Yang Chen let go. Control the iron rod, fly 10 laps around my shoulder. Yang Chen began to command indiscriminately. Li Liheng didn't dare to neglect, immediately controlled the iron rod, and began to circle around Yang Chen's body. 10 laps were completed quickly, and then the iron rod was suspended in front of Yang Chen's chest. 10 laps in the opposite direction. Yang Chen's order followed. Controlling the iron rod to fly with spiritual awareness was naturally to check the problems in the spiritual awareness. Li Liheng didn't worry about it. He just followed Yang Chen's words and acted honestly. Next, it was a series of control processes from simple to complex, and Li Liheng also completed them with his heart. In order to let Yang Chen thoroughly understand his problem, he did it meticulously. The later movements became more and more complicated. Even if Li Liheng only controlled a small iron rod, it began to be a little difficult, and sweat appeared on his forehead. But Li Liheng did not dare to have a little neglect, and did his best to cooperate with Yang Chen's command. No one would know that in the increasingly difficult control of the spiritual awareness, in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, the spiritual awareness imprint left by Li Liheng began to slowly react. Close at hand, Li Liheng could certainly perceive that Yang Chen had his spiritual awareness imprint on him. This was his own, so he didn't care. He just thought that Yang Chen hadn't discovered it, and he didn't dare to start it himself, for fear of annoying Yang Chen, and there was no hope. And when he tried his best to urge his spiritual awareness, the pile of spiritual awareness threads in Chen Chen's sea of consciousness wrapped his spiritual awareness imprint began to feel some changes of Li Liheng. As Yang Chen combined the beast-controlling secret art with the three purities secret art, after the spiritual awareness threads wrapped Li Liheng's spiritual awareness imprint, some of Li Liheng's thoughts also clearly appeared in Yang Chen's mind. Determining that he could capture a trace of Li Liheng's thoughts, Yang Chen finally determined that he could use this way to connect with Li Liheng's thoughts, and he could communicate with Li Liheng through the spiritual awareness imprint. However, now Yang Chen didn't want to show this. He just found an opportunity to bring Li Liheng's spiritual awareness imprint a little closer to the blood river, and let the killing intent slightly erode the spiritual awareness imprint, and suddenly Li Liheng reacted. The killing intent flashed away, but Li Liheng was also affected. The iron rod, which was barely controlled, suddenly broke away from Li Liheng's control and fell to the ground. Li Liheng had already urged his spiritual awareness to the limit, but he did not notice the difference at all. In the eyes of Mao Qi next to him, Li Liheng controlled it very well at first, but in the end it became more and more difficult, and finally something went wrong. However, looking at Yang Chen's satisfied expression, Mao Qi would rather believe that Yang Chen was like this because he found the cause of Li Liheng's illness. The problem is not very big. I can refine a medicinal pill. As long as the young sect master takes one of these medicinal pills every half a month, as long as it lasts for 30 years, the disease will naturally be cured. Yang Chen patted his chest and gave Li Liheng a very positive answer. Mao Qi and Li Liheng were overjoyed. If Yang Chen could solve the problem of Li Liheng's spiritual awareness, it would definitely be a great fortune for Taishimen. In addition to being happy, Mao Qi also had a slightly malicious speculation. If Yang Chen knew the whole story of the matter, he didn't know if he would feel that the reward he asked for was a lot less. Li Liheng was happy that he finally found a solution. As long as the trouble was solved and the cultivation method continued to be in depth, his status and speaking power would definitely rise. It was another satisfactory meeting between the two sides, but at the end of the separation, Yang Chen gave Mao Qi an uncertain answer. The medicinal pill of the young sect master is good, but the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, I can't guarantee the success in one go, so the time may be delayed for a few years, please understand. Of course, there was a risk of failure in alchemy, and Mao Qi was prepared for it. It was just that he was very upset with Yang Chen's previous promise. It seemed that he just wanted him to get the reward first, and deliberately said that it would only take 3 years to reassure him. A small character was a small character, and it was impossible to imagine a behemoth like Taishimen. Not to mention the promise of the 6th Earth True Secret Art and 6th Earth True Essence, even if it was 10 times more precious things, Taishimen would never break their promise on this occasion. In Mao Qi's heart, Yang Chen had continuously lost points and became a single-minded genius who only knew how to study alchemy. Alchemy may be a master second to none, but his vision and knowledge were still small. From this point of view, his future achievements were limited. At most, he would have some achievements on the road of alchemy. Both sides were satisfied, and Yang Chen returned to Chunyang Palace. After reporting to the head of the palace, he entered the Immortal's cave again and began alchemy. This time, it was a real alchemy. 2 kinds of medicinal pills. One was the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, and the other was the spirit congealing pill prepared for Li Liheng. Li Liheng had no problems, and Yang Chun certainly knew that. This spirit-congealing pill was refined for Li Liheng, which could make his spiritual awareness slightly condense and feel the changes in his spiritual awareness, making him think that the medicinal pills refined by Yang Chun had worked. This was the only role of the spirit-congealing pill. As for the fainting from time to time, as long as Yang Chun did not torment Li Liheng's spiritual awareness, he was absolutely safe and sound. Wouldn't it give people a feeling of being cured by the medicine? This was only one of the intentions. The other purpose was to completely eliminate the possibility of Li Liheng successfully practicing that kind of cultivation method. Yang Chun had a small trap in the medicinal pills. As long as it was taken continuously, the spiritual awareness would develop in another direction, and it would no longer be possible to communicate with the predecessors in the spiritual world and immortal world. As for the most important role, it was to make Li Liheng develop a dependence on the spirit-congealing pill, and it would not work without it. There was a key point in this plan. After taking the spirit-congealing pill, it could give Li Liheng and the top Taishanmen a feeling of contacting the predecessors in the spiritual world. Chapter 862. It was important to make Li Liheng have a wrong feeling. It must be known that Li Liheng specialized in spiritual awareness, and his spiritual power cultivation base was relatively poor, but his sensitivity to spiritual awareness was amazing. In order to fool him, it was necessary to have the spiritual awareness of a master beyond the Deshang stage. At this point, Yang Chun has already done it. His current spiritual awareness realm was the human immortal first grade. Although this was the lowest spiritual awareness in the spiritual world, it was enough to fool Li Liheng. The bond between the two was not more suitable than the spiritual awareness imprint left in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. Yang Chen even sensed Li Liheng's thoughts through it. Of course, he could also convey his own meaning to Li Liheng through the spiritual awareness imprint. This was simply a seamless plan. Once Li Liheng noticed that he had contacted the predecessors in the spiritual world, the Taishanmen would be ecstatic. Maybe they would make some right or wrong decisions according to the instructions of the predecessors. It was 10,000 times easier to destroy the Taishanmen from the top to the bottom and from the inside out than from the bottom to the top and from the outside in. Since Yang Chen's spiritual awareness reached the human immortal first grade, Yang Chun has been planning for this day. Now, the initial obstacles have been swept away one by one, waiting for the day of Li Liheng's surprise to come. Who could have thought that the Taishanmen had worked so hard to find Li Liqing, who was suitable for cultivating that kind of cultivation method, and the senior expert he contacted turned out to be the enemy of the sect. As long as he won the trust of the Taishanmen's senior management, many things would become easier. Don't look at the Taishanmen now, but the next thing was a disaster that could make the Taishanmen want to cry but have no tears. Especially when these disasters were caused by the orders of the sect master and the core elders, it was even more wonderful. The 2 flying swords sent by the Taishanmen were the best flying sword. In order to please Yang Chun, the Taishanmen definitely paid a lot. The first 2 were fire attribute flying swords, and now there were 2 water attribute flying swords. These 2 water elemental flying swords were of excellent quality. They were enough to become a part of Yang Chen's great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword. However, Yang Chun had another water flying sword, but this did not prevent Yang Chun from refining it in his sea of consciousness. He sent it into his sea of consciousness and began to temper the natal flying sword. Of course, just like other sword souls, it could be taken out at any time. The 2 fire attribute flying swords did not have such good luck. Yang Chun made up his mind to use the bright ray sword as his 3rd fire flying sword. At the same time, he had already refined a 4th fire flying sword. The best outcome of these 2 fire attribute flying swords was to be integrated into the bright ray sword and the 4th fire flying sword to improve the quality. It was also a part of the great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword. The sixth Earth True Secret art was in hand, but in order to realize the plan as soon as possible, Yang Chen did not cultivate it for the time being, but first refined the spirit congealing pill for Li Liheng. The spirit congealing pill was a medicinal pill of the spiritual world. It was impossible for the mortal world to know about it. Yang Chen could use this kind of medicinal pill boldly, and there would be no suspicion of being exposed. This kind of spirit congealing pill had little effect below the third grade. The only advantage was that it could condense the spiritual awareness a little bit. Only the third grade and above would there be a change of being reborn. To perfunctory Li Liheng, a second grade refinement was enough. This also meant that the profound spirit furnace actually only needed a first grade refinement. For Yang Chen, there was almost no difficulty in refining the first grade spirit congealing pill. Yang Chen's medicinal materials were enough. In less than 3 months, he had a full furnace with hundreds of pills. The fifth grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was also not much difficult, but Yang Chen deliberately refined more in order to give more insurance to the people of Chunyang Palace. 2 years later, a furnace of Lingji mushroom jade pill produced 6, one more than the first refining. Since it was said that there was a problem of success rate in alchemy, Yang Chen certainly would not immediately jump out to explain to the Taishamen how to let them wait anxiously. At the same time, this was also in line with Yang Chen's practice of concealing his strength at this stage. In the following period of time, Yang Chen first controlled the profound spirit furnace and absorbed all the fire seeds below the 6th grade fire seed, leaving only the 6th grade fire seed. Then he stopped. Just this effort alone took another 2 years. The 6th Earth True Secret art was a good thing. When it was successfully cultivated, it could definitely drive the improvement of the cultivation method realm, but Yang Chen wanted to wait until he reached the Yuanying stage to cultivate it in order to be able to have another breakthrough. Shao Tian has gained great benefits in the Dragon Palace. The most obvious was to get the base of the Dragon Tower and to fully control the Dragon Palace. Now Shao Tian has been hiding in the Dragon Tower to cultivate madly, trying to use the power of the Dragon Tower to quickly digest the huge dragon qi left by the dozens of giant dragon corpses. He believed that after Shao Tian completely absorbed the dragon qi, he could easily enter the second floor of the Dragon Tower to cultivate. He didn't know to what extent Shao Tian could grow in the future. Yang Chen was very looking forward to this. He couldn't give the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill to the Taishamen early, lest they quickly calm down the contradictions within the sect. Yang Chen has never planned to come out in a short time in the Immortal's cave. The bright ray sword and the third fire flying sword sent by the Taishamen were wrapped by Yang Chen with the yin-yang heaven burning fire, trying to smelt together and quickly improve the level of the bright ray sword. At the same time, the sword embryo of the 4th fire flying sword was also refined together with the 4th fire flying sword sent by the Taishamen. The yin-yang flames came out together, but it was also in line with the principle of yin-yang complementing each other. The 2 flying swords were in the process of rapid integration. This time, the refining of the flying sword took a full 6 years, plus the time of the previous alchemy. 8 years passed in a blink of an eye. After the 2 flying swords were perfectly integrated, Yang Chen stopped and after tidying up everything, he announced his exit. The Taishamen still sent a representative to stay in Chunyang Palace for a long time to wait for news. After hearing that Yang Chen was out, he almost couldn't wait to appear in front of Yang Chen. The refining of the Lingji mushroom jade pill has failed several times in a row. I have kept you waiting for a long time. Yang Chen said sorry words, but there was no apologetic look on his face, and there was no apology in his tone. He just handed over the spirit congealing pill to the other party, and at the same time, a 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was also handed over. When the other party got the medicinal pill, he thanked him again, and his attitude was very good, which was not similar to the usual domineering attitude of the Taishamen. Later, the representative of the Taishamen quickly left, presumably to rescue the only injured Deshang stage master. As for the spirit-congealing pill given to Li Liheng, maybe he was not qualified to know much inside story, and naturally he would not pay much attention to it. The head of the palace also appeared in the first time and sent away the representative of the Taishanmen, and pulled Yang Chen into the council hall. Yang Chen did not disclose much to the head of the palace. The head of the palace only knew that Yang Chen was definitely not good for the Taishanmen, but he did not know what means he would use. Chapter 863. The fact was too incredible, and it was a matter of great importance. Even the head of the palace, Yang Chen, did not say much. He just took out a batch of flying swords obtained from the underwater Immortal's cave in the extreme northern ice field last time and handed it to the palace master. This batch of flying swords were all good flying swords, although they were not as good as the 4 flying swords that the Taishanmen used to pay for Yang Chen. It was enough for many disciples to temper their flying sword. This retreat of alchemy attracted a lot of attention. The Green Jade, Immortal Island, and the Blue Cloud sect did not say anything and sent Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue over. They had been waiting for Yang Chen for a while. Because Yang Chen was in retreat for alchemy, they did not disturb him. The 2 women came over naturally because they wanted to know the inside story of this alchemy. Yang Chen promised to make a move once in 25 years, which naturally depended on the arrangement of the sect. However, no one could stop him from making alchemy in private, and no one would stop him. In fact, everyone also knew that the Taishanmen must have come up with a very high price to be able to impress Yang Chen. This was actually a good thing for the 2 sects. As long as Yang Chen was willing to make alchemy in private, could it be that the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect could not come up with enough benefits for Yang Chen? Moreover, with the relationship between Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, this matter would only become easier and easier. Because of the visit of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, Gong Sunling, who had just returned to the sect, simply stopped going out and received the 2 women with Gao Yu. The 4 beautiful women were competing for beauty, which was also a scene in Gao Yu's small courtyard that made people envious to death. Yang Chen came to his master's small courtyard. As soon as he entered the door, he felt the clear distinction between the 2 sides. 4 pairs of beautiful eyes simultaneously stared at Yang Chen's face. Normally, a cultivator with a weak aura would definitely flee in defeat. Fortunately, Yang Chen was thick-skinned enough. After greeting his master, he greeted the 3 women one by one. After that, he began to talk about the whole story of his secluded cultivation. Hearing that Yang Chen used a 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill to exchange for the 6th Earth True Secret Art and 6th Earth True Essence of Gong Sunling was excited. She ignored the gazes of the other 3 women and threw herself into the arms of Yang Chen. She hugged Yang Chen tightly as if she couldn't express her joy if she didn't do this. After appeasing his senior sister, Yang Chen couldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. His master had the 10th Water True Secret Art, but Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were still relatively advanced cultivation methods. They had not yet reached the level of the original cultivation method. It wasn't that the 2 sect couldn't come up with the original cultivation method. At least the Blue Cloud sect definitely had the 8th Metal True Secret Art. It was just that the Yin and Yang 5 elements true essence was really rare. Even if there was a cultivation method, without the Yin and Yang 5 elements true essence, it couldn't be cultivated. In order to collect a little 5th Earth true essence, the Taishanmen almost fell out with the 5 elements sect. In the end, they went for wool and came home shorn. Not only did they lose all the 5th Earth true essence, but they also lost some manpower and became enemies with several other sections. One could imagine the preciousness of this true essence. Looking at the 4 women who seemed to be clearly divided into 2 small groups, Yang Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue had already had a spiritual awareness double cultivation with him, and they were already his nominal fiancés. Therefore, Yang Chen decided to let Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue cultivate their original cultivation method. Don't say much, accompany me to retreat and cultivate, and attack the realm of cultivation. Yang Chen brought out the demeanor of a big master and gave orders to the 4 women in a very domineering manner. Listening to Yang Chen's words, the 4 women looked at each other and nodded silently after a while. For the first time, Yang Chen used the tone of a husband to give orders, and no one wanted to be the disobedient person. In the place of retreat, because Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan were there, naturally they couldn't go into the Immortal's cave. However, Yang Chen also had a way. Returning to his courtyard, he let Gong Sunling arrange the protective formation, and then took out the Dragon Palace from the Merit Ring and released it in his small courtyard. The 4 women followed Yang Chen into the Dragon Palace with surprise, and then the Dragon Palace disappeared in the courtyard. To put it bluntly, the Dragon Palace was a more advanced Immortal's cave, even more powerful than the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave. Using it for cultivation was definitely twice the result with half the effort. Such a magnificent and exquisite Dragon Palace, the 4 women were directly dazzled by it. Even the big sect like the Green Jade, Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect have never seen such a beautiful Immortal's cave. When the 4 women entered the Dragon Palace, they were like country bumpkins who had never seen the world. They looked around and were dizzying. If you like it, choose one of your own rooms. Yang Chen was also happy to see his wife like it in the future. This is our home. Even the most sedate Gao Yu cheered and disappeared directly from the hall and began to choose her favorite room. The cold and arrogant Shi Shanshan couldn't resist this temptation. The Immortal's cave that was carefully refined by her husband would be her own home in the future, so what was there to be polite about? Just tossing and choosing, the 4 women spent a whole day. After choosing, the 4 women seemed to forget that they belonged to 2 small groups and got together to discuss how to decorate and how to arrange it. Looking at their happy and attentive appearance, they really regarded this place as their future home. After choosing their own room, after tossing and turning, everyone gathered in the hall again. Looking at Yang Chen, the 4 women were all hesitant to speak. This is what I found in the South China Sea, the Dragon Palace left by the ancient Dragon Clan. Yang Chen didn't hide it from his fiancée, and without waiting for them to ask, he directly gave the answer. Ah! The 4 women all exclaimed in a low voice. This news was by no means weaker than the news that Yang Chen had become a 5th-grade alchemist master. It was really shocking. The ancient Dragon Clan, a race that had been extinct in the mortal world, actually had a dragon palace left in the world, and it was obtained by Yang Chen. It sounded like a heavenly book. If it weren't for everyone being in it now, the women wouldn't believe what Yang Chen said. How deep was Yang Chen's blessing to have such heaven-defying luck? When the women accepted this fact, Yang Chen said to the women sternly, "This kind of thing is not a big deal, don't make such a fuss in the future." The women were about to protest, but suddenly thought of these things that happened to Yang Chen, and they all fell silent. Yes, everything that happened to him seemed to be shocking. It seemed that there was really no need to be so surprised about a mere dragon palace. Shanshan, little Shui. Yang Chen specifically said to Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue this time, "I don't know what your respective sect expects from you. I just want to know what resources can the sect give you. Cultivation methods, magic weapons, elixirs, everything count. I want to know." Chapter 864. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were caught off guard by Yang Chen's question. To be honest, the 2 women had no idea how much support the sect could give them. Although Sun Qingxue had a master who was a Deshang stage elder, it was impossible for the sect to give her unlimited support. Similarly, Shi Shanshan was a cultivation genius, but the sect would only give her certain care in some aspects. As for how far she could reach, it was still unknown. "Husband, why do you ask?" Shi Shanshan couldn't figure out Yang Chen's mind, so she took the initiative to ask. There were only Yang Chen and the 4 women here. In this family, Shi Shanshan couldn't put on a frosty look, and her speech was more natural. Sun Qingxue had the same confusion, but Sure Shanshan took the lead. She didn't say much, just opened her eyes wide, and her eyelashes flickered as she looked at Yang Chen, waiting for Yang Chen's answer. You are my wives, and I will give you cultivation resources beyond your imagination, so I have to ask about the attitude of your sect, so as not to accidentally offend your sect. Yang Chen replied with a smile. In addition, there are some choices in the direction of cultivation. I am afraid that I will have different opinions from your master, so I have to ask about it first. The two women were also his fiancées. Except for some small things, Yang Chen did not support them at all costs like Gao Yu and Gong Sunling. Now that Yang Chen wanted to be fair, of course, he couldn't leave the two of them behind. It was just that they were not people of Chunyang Palace, so they had to be a little scrupulous. Although Yang Chen said it with a smile, the resources beyond imagination still made Sure Shanshan and Sun Qingxue slightly stunned. What was beyond imagination? Sure Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were all from the big sect. Whether it was vision or knowledge, they were much stronger than ordinary disciples of small sections. At least half of the resources they had seen in the sect, the cultivators of small sect or rogue cultivators were stunned. This was the confidence of the big sect. To put it bluntly, Chunyang Palace wanted to give Yang Chen fire seeds, and mobilized all the disciples to collect them with the contribution of the sect. In the end, they only collected more than 200 kinds of fire seeds of the first and second grade, and there were very few third-grade fire seed. However, whether it was the Green Jade Immortal Island or Blue Cloud sect, plus the later Taishaman Five Elements sect, the remuneration they paid to Yang Chen was all high-level fire seeds, and it was easily. This was the difference between a big sect and a small sect. Even Yang Chen could not deny it. But now Yang Chen said to the two women that he would give them resources beyond their imagination. How could the two women not be surprised? Although they were surprised, none of the women present had any doubts. Not to mention anything else, just the Dragon Palace in front of them had completely exceeded their imagination. Since there was this bottom line, it seemed that it was not so unacceptable for Yang Chen to come up with something unimaginable. Yang Chen's concerns were natural. If the two women were rogue cultivators, naturally there would be no such trouble. But they were all people with masters. If their masters had already planned their future cultivation path for them, if Yang Chen intervened rashly, he might annoy the other party's elders. Doing bad things with good intentions was not worth the loss. Therefore, everything must be considered and properly arranged first. It was related to his two fiancées and the relationship between the two major sect and Chunyang Palace, so Yang Chen had to be careful. These things, Sure Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were also encountered for the first time. They never thought about what kind of cultivation path the sect and their master would arrange for them. Yang Chen's cultivation was said to be completely self-determined. Although Gao Yu was his master, she almost never gave him any guidance. Everything now was Yang Chen's own efforts. Moreover, Yang Chen had defeated Sure Shanshan. In terms of cultivation, it was still no problem for him to guide the two women. On this point, Sun Qingxue was convinced. Even Sure Shanshan had been guided by Yang Chen to get rid of her inner demons. But after all, Yang Chen was only their husband, not their master. Once Yang Chen's advice was different from that of the sect, how should the two women choose? According to Yang Chen's memory, even without his guidance, the two women would be famous in the future. However, whether it was Sure Shanshan or Sun Qingxue, they inevitably took some detours. When Sun Qingxue first joined the sect, she was delayed by a mediocre master. Although Sure Shanshan had not yet reached the point of having problems, it was not far away. Since he had these memories, Yang Chen naturally would not let them delay their cultivation for so long. Sun Qingxue had been on the right track, but Sure Shanshan still had a tribulation, and he had to be prepared for it. This matter, maybe we have to go back to the sect and ask carefully. Sure Shanshan thought for a long time, and did not dare to give a positive answer directly, so she could only answer like this. Sun Qingxuan next to her also nodded again and again. Even if she was deeply loved by Elder Hua, she did not dare to make decisions for Elder Hua easily. Remember, after you go back, you have to ask for advice. Yang Chen nodded. This was the normal attitude. If the two women came up without considering anything else, it would be dangerous. However, he still asked the two women to fight a little. It is best to let the sect nod and allow you to cultivate with me. With the current relationship between Chunyang Palace and the Blue Cloud sect of the Green Jade Immortal Island, this would not be difficult to do. And everyone knew that following Yang Chen would never wrong their own disciples, so there was no reason not to agree. However, no matter what, it was necessary to let them know that their face was not bad, otherwise, good intentions would also bring big trouble. This was a little bit of information for the two women first, so that they could do the work of the sect, and also be mentally prepared. As for now, it was Yang Chen who pulled them to a thorough retreat, to cultivate everyone's tacit understanding, and also to attack the realm. Of course, the most important thing was to stabilize the realm of the four women's spiritual awareness. Before, in order to solve his own spiritual awareness problem, Yang Chen had double cultivation with the four goddesses, each for a month. Yang Chen's problem was solved, but the four women had not cultivated the three purities' secret art, and they could not have such a strong foundation like Yang Chen. Therefore, double cultivation again could make their realm more stable. The reason why there was such a long interval was to let them have an adaptation process. Just halfway through, Yang Chen designed Taishimen to refine pills for them. After 10 years, it was the best time to cultivate. Of course, the four women did not hesitate to agree to retreat here with Yang Chen. Chapter 865. It was a very luxurious thing to retreat with Yang Chen. It was a thing that made outsiders know that they could beat their chests and stomp their feet. Their eyes were red with envy and jealousy. The second-grade questioning inner heart pill. It was not known how many big sect and the masters of the Yuanying and Deshang stage dreamed of it, but here it was like it did not cost money. It was not unusual for everyone to have one first. In the following days, Yang Chen spent every day in the process of spiritual awareness double cultivation with one of the four women. This kind of day lasted for more than a year before it stopped. After more than a year of cultivation, the four women's spiritual awareness realm was thoroughly consolidated, and even there were signs of impact to a higher realm. Even if there were any major changes in the future, the spiritual awareness realm of the four women would not be easily affected. Until this point, Yang Chen stopped and let the four women cultivate by themselves. Yang Chen himself began to carry out his unfinished work, using the profound spirit furnace to absorb the fire seeds. There were still several kinds of fifth-grade fire seeds that have not been absorbed. In addition, there were several kinds of sixth-grade fire seeds, and the other was the palace treasure of Chunyang Palace that Yang Chen has been hiding on his body, the seventh-grade fire seed Pure Yang True Fire. For the time being, the fifth-grade fire seed was no problem at all, and the profound spirit furnace has absorbed more than one kind. The sixth-grade fire seed would not be a big problem, but the seventh-grade Pure Yang True Fire, the profound spirit furnace may not be able to withstand it. It was necessary to absorb a few more kinds of sixth-grade fire seeds in order to upgrade the profound spirit furnace to the point where it could withstand the Pure Yang True Fire. The profound spirit furnace absorbing the fire seed was only the first step. Yang Chen absorbed the fire seed from the profound spirit furnace and integrated it into the yin-yang heaven burning fire, which was the most fundamental purpose. However, compared with the absorption progress of the profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen's current absorption of the yin-yang heaven burning fire was only to the point of absorbing the third-grade fire seed, which was still far from it. The process of absorption, that is, the process of Yang Chen's fire attribute spiritual power crazy growth, and also the process of triggering other spiritual power to improve. If you don't count the remaining cultivation of the great yin and yang 5 elements secret art, Then if Yang Chen wants to cross his tribulation and form his nascent soul, it all depends on the opportunity to absorb the fire seed. This was a process that needed to be carried out for a long time, even if the profound spirit furnace was used to absorb the fire seed. The absorption of the fifth-grade fire seed, even if it is the profound spirit furnace, takes at least half a year. After every fifth-grade fire seed is absorbed in the profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen will integrate a third-grade fire seed to maintain a relatively average cultivation base. Several kinds of fifth-grade fire seeds were absorbed and a few years passed in a flash. The profound spirit furnace in the memory of his previous life seemed to be obtained by its real owner at this time, and it began to gradually become famous. That was after he went to the spiritual world. The changes in the profound spirit furnace made Yang Chen not know how to describe it. The addition of several fifth-grade fire seeds was almost a qualitative change. The body of the furnace became even more crystal clear and started to become transparent. In the future, if he worked hard enough, he would be able to see the changes in the herbs inside the furnace from outside. It was even easier to raise the grade of medicinal herbs. Before Yang Chen refined the fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, he had to refine it to the fourth grade for a period of time, but now it was estimated that as long as it was refined to the fourth grade, the profound spirit furnace would automatically upgrade a grade. The biggest change was that if Yang Chen used the profound spirit furnace to refine the mortal medicinal pills, no matter how Yang Chen controlled it, the medicinal pills that came out of the profound spirit furnace were at least second grade. Even if Yang Chen deliberately lowered the grade, it could not be done. In the future, if Yang Chen wants to perfunctorily refine the first-grade questioning inner heart pills in other sect, it seems that he can only give up the profound spirit furnace and use an ordinary pill furnace. The pill furnace sent by the Taishaman was just used for this purpose. It was also very luxurious for the women to cultivate by themselves. The 4 C's mysterious coral liquid had to be drunk almost every other year to completely remove the impurities in the body. The second-grade questioning inner heart pill and the second-grade inner sensing pill would be taken every time they had a deep cultivation, and the abundant spiritual power in the Dragon Palace was even richer than all the spiritual veins of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect combined. In this environment, even if everyone took a casual breath, it was several times stronger than regular cultivation outside, not to mention this kind of deep cultivation after taking the second-grade questioning inner heart pill. The cultivation base of the 4 women was advancing by leaps and bounds. Shi Shanshan was the first to enter the bottleneck period. In the year when Yang Chen was reborn as an executioner, Shi Shanshan had already begun to condense her Dan, and it had been 170 years since then. Before, Shi Shanshan was already at the peak of the late Jedan stage. Now she had completely stepped into the peak of the Jedan stage, and only one last step was needed to cross the tribulation and form her nascent soul. But this step was the most difficult and the most critical. At this moment, Shi Shanshan taking the questioning inner heart pill and the inner sensing pill had little effect. Although her spiritual power cultivation base had surpassed most of the early Yuanying stage masters and was close to the middle Yuanying stage, because she had not passed the thunder tribulation after the thunder baptism, her realm still stayed at the peak of the Jedan stage. However, the opportunity for Shi Shanshan to cross the tribulation and form her nascent soul was already prepared by Yang Chen. The 7th metal true secret art plus enough 7th metal true essence could definitely allow Shi Shanshan to successfully complete the tribulation and form her nascent soul. However, before that, Shi Shanshan had to understand the concerns that Yang Chen had mentioned before from the sect. Although Gao Yu was about the same age as Shi Shanshan, she later began to cultivate the water attribute spirit power again, at the suggestion of Yang Chen. Before the retreat, the water and fire spirit power were balanced and maintained in the middle Jedan stage. The realms of Gong Sunling and Sun Qingxue were also in this realm. After 10 years of retreat, the cultivation base of the three women rushed to the late Jedon stage. It was believed that in another few decades, they would also reach the realm of Shirshanshan. Similarly, everyone's opportunity to cross the tribulation of the Yuanying stage was prepared by Yang Chen. When the time came, it was the time to cross the tribulation and form the nascent soul. As for Yang Chen himself, with the help of the Dragon Yuan, he had already entered the late Jedon stage. During this time, in addition to the fusion of the fire seed, he was consolidating and balancing other attributes of spirit power, and at the right time, let the young sect master of Taishaman, Li Liheng, feel that his strange illness had been slowly cured. Yang Chen gave the Taishaman hundreds of spirit-congealing pills. Every half a month, Li Liheng would take one. And this spirit-congealing pill did make Li Liheng have a significant change. The first thing Li Liheng felt was the condensation of his spiritual awareness. Soon after taking the medicinal pill, he could clearly feel this. Of course, the most critical change was that the interval between Li Liheng's inexplicable fainting began to get longer and longer. After the first pill was taken, it took almost 20 days before he began to faint. Under normal circumstances, this interval was only 10 days. As more and more spirit-congealing pills were taken, the interval between fainting changed from 20 days to 30 days, 40 days, 2 months, 4 months, half a year, 1 year. So far, the last fainting was 20 months ago. This phenomenon fully explained the effect of Yang Chen's medicinal pills.